Welcome back. It is episode 103. This podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex in association with Power Pit Rockingham, and I am your host, Jacob Harris. Today, I am joined by Joshua Baker. Thanks for being here, man.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I mean, it's always good when you get to speak to someone from the other side of the world. So it's, one of those things where we probably have a little bit of different topics to talk about and kind of have a little bit of lifestyle differences as well. Have you ever been to Australia?
I haven't. You know what I find though? I feel like out of all the continents and all the places in the world, I feel like Australians are probably the closest in terms of personality and lifestyle to Brits. Like I don't feel like we're that far apart. Obviously the landscape of where we live is very different, but I just feel like as people, like that classic, like laddish banter and like pub life is kind of similar in Australia as it is in the UK. But no, I've never been there. It's definitely on the bucket list to do. I really want to go there. Probably make it a family holiday at some point in the next 5 years. That's the plan.
Yeah, man. I think it's probably because obviously you've recently done some videos with Larry Wheels and Bradley Martin and stuff like that. Because in America, obviously that kind of content scene's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Australia, we've got a lot of strong people here, and there's a lot of great athletes. But I think we're just sort of playing catch up. I think in that regard. So it's not. And once again, it's obviously a bit further as well. But you're spot on, man. Honestly, I had a lot of mates growing up that were, either from England or Scottish or something, and then it's like the humor's definitely way closer.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be honest, like, yourself, you've probably I know that we've got a lot of people that have moved over here as well. So do you have a lot of like friends or family that moved over?
Yeah, plenty. Yeah. Like I've got family that have moved over, and I've got friends that have moved over. And not just Australia, but New Zealand too. Places like New Zealand, Fiji. I've got friends that have emigrated there. So yeah, I think it's like for people in the UK, it's almost like a destination zone, like somewhere that you want to one day be. But it's like for me, like I remember when I was, a couple of years ago, my intent, like part of my plan, my 10-year plan is to one day emigrate to either Australia or New Zealand. I don't know which one because I love both. I say I love both. That's from Google Images. Can only judge so much, but I really want to move to one of them. And so, yeah, you are right in saying that there's definitely a lot of Brits that move out there. I think it's funny that you just said about Australian fitness and how like it's a smaller space out there. I think that's the biggest struggle in the UK, which is why like obviously going to the US for me is a big opportunity. Because in the UK it's got such a small fitness space in the sense of people that actually pump out content. I mean, you've got Eddie Hall, you've got Big Loz, but Big Loz predominantly covers just the strongman world, and does a lot of strongman content, but it's not really like generic to fitness creators or fitness influencers. And then at the same time, other than that, you've not really got many kind of fitness based creators out here. So it's a very small space, and it feels quite lonely at times in the UK. Do you know what I mean? There's not a lot of collaboration opportunities. There's not a lot of opportunities to go and do more, group content and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, luckily I have got some collaborations coming up in the UK. I'm sure you might have heard of his name, Terry Hollands, who's ex-World Strongest Man competitor. So I'm going to go a bench session in with Terry in a couple of weeks after I get back from holiday. I think we're both on holiday the same week, so when we both get back, we're hitting a bench session. And I have got a couple more collaborations coming up that I can't say the names of yet, but I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's I mean, it's funny, I guess, for me because maybe depending on where you are, but like I don't know, maybe the obvious one would be like Matt Does Fitness or something I got on 2 years ago. And then to me, I guess I kind of then started to follow more people from the UK and I guess Mike Thurston used to be there and stuff. And obviously they're a little bit different because they're kind of focused a little bit more around bodybuilding and that sort of stuff. But to me, I guess the scene looks big from here because I live in Perth in Western Australia, which is like, we're just like an isolated city and man, half the population works at the mine. You know what I mean? So and they all just fly away at work. So it's like, it's I don't know. I feel like here, maybe Melbourne's a bit better. I know Melbourne, Sydney are a little bit better. But I hear what you're saying. It must be, especially for yourself too, because I mean, I guess I wouldn't totally understand, but I wouldn't imagine powerlifting is huge in the area that you're in.
I mean, so it's like, I think the classic says, classic saying is there's no money in powerlifting, and there isn't. No matter where you are in the world, there is no money in powerlifting as a whole. And it's funny, really, because some people become so egotistical over it. And it does happen. Like, I have people in the UK that are powerlifters that absolutely hate my existence. They call me a bullshit bencher. They call me this, that. I hear all sorts behind my back. Don't get me wrong, I don't lose any sleep over it, but I don't know if it's from a jealousy standpoint because I've just come out of nowhere, and then I obviously make an income from this now, and then not only that, but I'm getting to travel and have sponsors. So I don't know if it's from a jealousy point of view or anything like that, but I feel like in the UK, powerlifting it's a pretty weird niche in the UK, I'd say. And I definitely don't feel like there's any money in it. I think that's the reason why powerlifting isn't getting any bigger in the UK, either, in my opinion. I don't, it's not got the courage that you'd think that it would have. I mean, obviously Sheffield SBD was a big event, and it's going to be a big event because it's got everyone from across the world there. But to look at just powerlifting as a whole in the UK scene, it's very small, and it's probably not advertised well enough. It's probably not marketed enough. But at the same time, the powerlifters that are at the top of the game in the UK do not market themselves well enough. Nobody pushes their socials. Nobody actually tries to grow a brand or grow themselves, and therefore there's no attachment to them as a competitor. So, yeah, powerlifting is definitely small in the UK. However, I don't think they help themselves. Do you know what I mean? I think they make it quite a nasty space to exist in, and not only that, but it's a space that they don't promote well enough themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the similar talks here. I speak to a lot of powerlifters, and I'm involved with a couple of associations here as well. And there was a state competition we had here recently, which probably was the most amount of money people had seen in a while. They gave out around about $25,000, which was big for us because, I mean, it's a big anywhere, I guess. But yeah, like you said, there's not normally a lot of money in there. And the problem with it is like most people are holding themselves together doing it, that I know anyway. Like, I know guys who, for an example, I have a guy that I'm mates with, one of my mates, Jack. He's a very strong bencher. So he's actually, I sent your content to him, and we were talking about it and stuff like that. And he benched about 500 pounds at under 100 kilos.
That's really good.
He's a strong guy, and he's kind of known for it. He's a great deadlifter and squatter as well, an all-round powerlifter, but he is a mechanic, man, 5 days a week, 9 to 5. And when I go and see him, he does my car and stuff like that, and I'll see him, and he's covered in shit, and he's banging shit with a sledgehammer. And, it's not something that like you said, it's not something really anyone does as a full-time job and can get paid enough for. So it's funny that it's kind of one of those things that people are dedicating a shitload of time to, and arguably in a lot of cases, probably damaging their bodies long-term.
And I think that's the thing that confuses me the most is why are people willing to pretty much put their body at risk, sometimes their health at risk, and the longevity of their life, probably shortening their lives with a lot of, pet abuse and et cetera. And they're doing it for a very, very, very small outcome. Now, don't get me wrong, I completely get the whole, Goggins mindset of I want to be the best, and I want to be the best in what I do. And if I'm the best in what I do, that is enough for me. I get it. But at the same time, if you're going to take something, for example, consider this, if you're going to invest 40, 30, 25, I don't care how many hours a week into what it is that you're passionate about, you should at least try and make sure there's some form of return on it. You know what I mean? Whether that is through small sponsorships or small advertisements or slowly growing your name or collaborations, over time, you need to be doing that, for me, because you can't sit in a space, keep investing time, and then the only return you see is a certificate that you get to take home one day that no one's really going to care about. Because as dumb as it sounds, people don't. Do you know what I mean? When you look at pretty much 99% of powerlifters' Instagrams, every single one of them holds some form of a record in some form of a weight class, in some form of a federation. Do you know what I mean? And that's why, because it's such a sparse and commoditized area where there's so many different records that you can hold in same weight classes, in same lifts. It's no one cares, no one remembers them. And so you have to, in my opinion, you need to start to make the space work for you and pay you. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I've just it's been a weird experience for me because I've just finished working. So I've been working full time for 13 years since I was 16 years old. I've never not had a job. It's always been me. And I've always worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week. For the bulk of my training, I've been training since I was 22, so 6 years now. For the bulk of my training, I was working night shifts, 12-hour nights. I'd start at 8 p.m. I'd finish at 8 a.m. I'd get home for about 8:30. I'd literally get changed, go straight to the gym for 9, and then I'd be in the gym from 9 until midday, and then I'd come home, eat, sleep, and do it again. And that was my routine. So the most difficult adjustment period for me recently, I mean, I came out of work about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. That's been a really difficult adjustment period for me because I'm trying to get I'm bored, I suppose is the best way I can put it. I've never been used to having this much time to myself. And I suppose it's like you spoke about when we said at the start, you said, I'm a late riser. I've been used to getting up at 6, 7 a.m., 5 a.m. for years. So it's almost like my body's kind of going, whoa, I can get up later. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's I don't think that's a good thing though. Like I'm trying to hone it in and trying to get control of it again because it's almost like I've just kind of let that lifestyle routine go a bit because there's not a job in place. So because I'm now, focused on content and focused on all that, I kind of feel like I have more freedom to do it whenever. But I still feel like it's a lot more productive to just be up at 6 or 7 and do it the right way. So it's something I need to hone in this week.
Yeah, it's something I can relate to though, man. Like we're in different spots, but I was working at a mine site, like I said, everyone here does it, and it was making me pretty unhappy. I stopped doing it, and then once same thing, I was probably up at 4 a.m. and I'm finding the same problem now. I am doing that. I've decided to finally go no. I'm going to put everything into podcasting, coaching. I really want to do this because it's a scary thing to do these days. We live in a bit of a weird society where you can actually do it now, but it's still foreign to your brain because you're still used to having to work for money. And you're still fairly young. What are you, 29 or 28? 28. Yep. So
I'm 29 this year.
Yeah. That's so. So 6 years you've been training since you were 22. You said that's right. So. I'm 27. You're at the age where it's scary because you're almost 30, and you're worried about taking that risk because if you end up at 30 and you're the guy who's still trying to make money from social media or something. I mean, like I said, you're obviously fit, you're doing well at the moment, but it worries you because you're like, everybody else around you's got a trade or they have a couple of houses or something, and it can be scary to do. But like you said, it's only going to happen like that. And you're probably only going to fail if you do get complacent and with time and things like that. If you're waking up at, that's what I said to myself. I was waking up at 4 and getting home at 8 o'clock. And I was saying, what if I just woke up and put this amount of time into something that I love?
What your passion. Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy to do it for someone else. And I hate it, and like you said, I'm not getting that return. I'm hating it. So it's refreshing to hear someone sort of put it like that as well, man. And someone like yourself too. You're not really, giving up anything for yourself either. Like you've said, I'm really curious. We mentioned this before at the start of the podcast. I'm really curious to talk about the fact you mentioned people sort of putting their body at risk, health-wise, using drugs and things like that, which is super common these days for people in this industry. Who want to make money, because they think, fuck, if I'm just shredded as fuck online, people will buy my program. Yeah. When I came across you and came across your content and everything, there was a lot to take in and I was watching all the videos and stuff like that. But one of the biggest overbearing things and being around people, especially in the powerlifting community, is straight away, 305 kilo bench press naturally. That's fucking bullshit. Straight away, right? It's because it doesn't sound right in your head. You're like, no one's done that. Yeah. And the other day, me and Jack, who I mentioned before, we were watching the IPF and we did a sort of a video on it, and we talked about the fact that the drug tested world record in IPF is 291 kilos. And so then even that kind of came into it yourself because then you think to yourself, hey, well, why doesn't Josh just break the fucking world record?
So I think the actual natural world record out of IPF is 305 kilo in comp. And then additionally to that, I suppose it's a really, let's cover it as an umbrella. So when I first started training, when I was 22. I only got into the gym to lose weight, never to build muscle or to do anything like that. In fact, the funniest thing about, I suppose, my outlook on the gym was when I was like 19, 20, 21, I thought everyone that went to the gym was a dickhead. Like, genuinely, I did. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I thought like, oh, look at those fucking, oh, look at me, like fucking string vest posers. Just, I thought like most of them were just egotistical pricks, and I had a really bad outlook on gym as a culture and people that went there. But I was overweight at the time, super overweight. I was 22. I'd gone from like a chubby phase to a really skinny phase to a chubby phase to a really skinny phase back to a chubby phase. And I think that's one thing about me is I'm very good at gaining. I'm also very good at losing. I can strip weight really fast. I can gain weight really fast. And the problem is that when I start doing one of them, I do it really well. Well, sadly, I'm really good at gaining weight too. I wish I wasn't. I wish I was just really good at stripping it. But when I was 22, I was holding a lot of excess weight. Now I had a younger brother, Jordan. He's 2 years younger than me. And when Jordan was 17 and I was 19, he was benching 180 kilo in the gym at 17. He was doing 180 on flat, 170 on incline. He was a strong kid. And not only that, but he had incredible shape. So he didn't have no, super heavy additional mass to him. He was lean, and he had an incredible V. He was super cut. And for 17, I was like, what the fuck? But either way, I still didn't kind of feed off that as a gene or genetic thing. I just thought, that's not for me. So I started hitting the gym at 22 to just lose weight. I was doing fasted cardio every morning. 6 a.m. I'd get up. I'd wrap my whole torso in like 2 layers of cling film, and then I'd put like 2 t-shirts, 2 hoodies on. I'd put the cling film on just for added insulation to make me sweat more. And then I'd put like 2 pairs of shorts on and a pair of joggers, and I'd hit the gym, and I'd do like a 40 to 45-minute incline walk fasted, and just watch like a Netflix episode. And I did that for like 3 months. And I think I cut like 3.5 stone pretty quickly. Like I was losing weight really fast. Obviously a lot of it was excess weight, so it was going to drop off faster because I was also really inactive. So just even doing anything at all was really good for me to lose weight. And then my little brother was like, you know what? Just come and do a weight session one time, just one day. Like, I know you're not into it, and I was like, oh, come on. But he'd walked in just as I was finishing cardio, and I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll give it half hour. So we went over and got on a bench press. And the first ever day in the gym, I benched like 105 kilo. And he was like, huh? And I was like, I didn't even have the, a concept of what weight was or what was strong and what isn't strong, vice versa. But he was like, that's strong. And I was like, okay, but it still doesn't mean nothing to me. And he was like, no, like, you don't get it. Like, you've never benched before and you're lying down and you're benching 105 kilo. I just put it down to, well, obviously I'm a big guy and I was holding a lot of excess weight. So I'd say it was just, some form of my mass being able to move that mass. And he was like, just come for one session next week or come for this. And slowly but surely, I kind of fed into it a little and I was like, fine, I'll come and do a session and et cetera, et cetera. And then, before I knew it, I was like, this is quite fun. And I was up to like a free plate, like 140 kilo bench within probably 3-4 months. So it was really quick how I was moving. So fast forward to where I am now. Obviously, started posting all my stuff on TikTok. That's where it really took off, especially stuff like the clapping bench press, because people are like, what in the world is that? But, or the one arm on incline where I do like, 225 or 265, 275. And people are like, what in the world? But obviously the big one is the 305 kilo bench, and people truly cannot fathom the idea that that could be done naturally. And I get it. I've also said myself, if I was someone looking at me from the outside, I would say he's not natural. So I don't have an ill will or an ill feeling toward anyone that disputes my natural status, because I would too. And I get it. But it's quite funny. If you know me, you'd know just how, I suppose, ignorant I am to all of it. I don't even know about steroids. I wish I did, like, genuinely, because it probably would have helped me jumping on them from a much younger age and progressing the right, a certain way. But then at the same time, it's probably very good that I've pushed my natural limitations to where I have. But I don't even know about steroids. I don't know about them. I'm so ignorant toward that stuff that I don't bother reading it, because I get confused too quickly in terms of all what it is, the different types of everything, dosages, etc., etc. So on Friday, I had a little message from a guy called Transform Now, who's Dr. Imran Khan. He's one of the biggest blood panel, drug specialists in the UK. He works with a lot of big influencers, big names, celebrities alike, you name it. And he does all of their health work and blood work, etc., etc. So we did a post on Friday on his IG, bearing in mind that he's obviously got a very, very big and diverse following of all different types of creators. And when he did the post, he said, 305 kilo bench, all natural. And the immediate messages he got were, don't be stupid, that guy is not natural. And he said, don't worry, I'm going to prove it. Well, I got my bloods back last night. So we got my blood panel work back last night. And not only am I natural, my testosterone is lower than average. So I'm actually performing at a 305 kilo bench with lower than average test, which is even funnier. Also, my vitamin D is classed as insufficient. My vitamin D is extremely low. We think it's something to do with the fact that I'm so big, so it's just really hard for me to get the correct, to just supplement that vitamin D in the right way. I also hate the sun. I stay out of the sun all, as much as I possibly can because I'm extremely pale and too white for it. So my vitamin D is super low, and therefore my recovery is even worse. And not only that, but low vitamin D is also something that will naturally lower testosterone. And then he said something about LH and FSH levels. I think that's what they're called, but they're the kind of things that are spiked a certain way if you've just come off cycle. And he said, you can see clearly in my bloods that I haven't just come off a cycle and I am genuinely low testosterone and I'm natural. Now, obviously you could say, well, maybe you used in the past or blah, blah, blah. Fair enough. I mean, I haven't. I've not lied about any of it yet. I've got no need to lie to you. I always say my kids are the most important thing in the world to me. I swear on the lives of my children, I've never taken anything. I've been very open about the only thing I've ever taken was BPC 157 in tablet form, and that's a peptide, which is a natural protein. I think it's made in your stomach, and it's just for recovery, basically. And yeah, so my bloods are actually they're actually showing that I haven't even got the recommended testosterone that I should have. So it's quite exciting, really, because his words to me last night were, if people think that you've been using, you're about to become a fucking phenom when you do. So I'm quite excited to use now, just to really put people off, because people, if people are really under the impression that I've been using, which I completely understand, like I said, bear in mind, last week I put up a new 6-plate incline PR, but I've got bloods that were done on Friday that show that I haven't used. So how am I getting stronger on incline then? How am I getting stronger in all these areas that I'm not using? Like I understand. I think the biggest, sorry, I know I'm really spewing here, but
No,
I think
right.
the biggest thing for people to see has been, and one of the biggest questions that people had was, okay, if you are natural, how did you progress at the rate that you progressed on flat bench press? Because I went from like 260, 265 to like 305 in the space of like 4.5, 5 months. Which, if you were going from a 105 to 145, is completely understandable. But to have it from 265 to 305, which at that weight and that strain on the body, it's highly unbelievable. And even I know that, I get it. But the biggest change for me was, one, the people I train with and the mindset difference. And then two, the equipment that I was using to train with. I don't think people realize just how important it is to actually bench on a comp bench with a power bar, as opposed to bench on a commercial bench that is thin with a shitty commercial bar that has whip, that doesn't give you, and doesn't work into your, intricacies and into your strengths to help you bench press. Because I went from benching a commercial gym on dreadful bars with techno gym plates on a dreadful bench and getting a 2.7, 2.5 at a struggle, to then going to a comp bench in Dino's gym in Solihull on a power bar and benching 300 kilo first time I'm asking, no problem, with speed. So it was like, okay, maybe it's the fact that I've just been relying on all these poorer areas, and the moment I've started to neaten them up and tidy up the edges, everything's coming in. So, it's been, people have to understand, it's not been a phase for me that's been normal. I've not been looking at this going, yeah. I've been looking at this going, what the fuck is happening? Like, why am I getting stronger like this? This is insane to me. But at the same time, Mike, my training partner, I don't know if you've seen Mike's content. Mike's an animal. Mike's like 106 kilo, benches 275 kilo. He squats 380. I think he squatted 380 in comp. He deadlifts 350, 360. He's a beast. But even Mike said, like, when Mike met me, he said, the benefit you're going to feel going from a commercial gym on a bench on a bad bar to a comp bench on a good bar is night and day. And I can tell you just from benching, it's insanity how different it is, just how it feels in the hands, how it hits, how you catch it. It's a whole different world. So yeah, I get the questions of not being natural. I get it all completely. But if you were part of my gene pool, if you saw the genetics of my younger brother, if you understood the amount of volume I've done in the last 6 years on bench press alone, I mean, I wish I could explain. For 4 years, I was doing 2 sessions a week on bench, 30 plus sets a session. And we're talking 65, 60 sets of bench press alone a week. I was doing 180 kilo on flat bench for sets of 8 for 10 sets repeatedly. I was doing 200 kilo for sets of 6 repeatedly. I used to be one of them idiots that thought volume just meant more and that you would benefit from it. And so obviously I probably for a couple of years actually did more damage than good. But in the long term, the adaptive volume kicked in and I've actually got a lot stronger from it. But people don't realize just how much work I've put in and how hard I've worked on bench press for the last 6 years. And then not only that, but like I said, I know it's been super unbelievable, but me and Doc Khan, we're going to do a post on Thursday when I go to his office. The reason I'm going to see him on Thursday is because he's going to jab me up with some vitamin D because I am super low on it. So he wants to get that into me as soon as possible. But while we're there, he wants to do a collaborative post stating that he's very confident I'm a natural lifter. So it's exciting. I'm excited to be able to share some kind of, actual blood panel work that shows it rather than me just saying what I am and it being difficult to believe.
Yeah, it's difficult because I know that Matt did something similar at one point, and I think he reached out to that was when he did it with like Derek from More Plates, More Dates or whatever. I don't know if you know that Matt did that, and he's once again it's different. It's more about the fact that he's a bodybuilder, and it's the way he looks and stuff. But he sort of did all that, man, and then it's really hard, I guess, looking from the outside because there was still just like heaps of people that were just like, oh yeah, but I mean, if this level's down, he still could have tricked it. And it just got to a point where I sort of just went, personally, I just went, you know what, fuck it. I think I'm just going to make the executive decision myself that I actually just believe him because he's done everything he can. If someone does everything they can to prove that they're natural, it's like, it shouldn't be your job to do it really. At the end of the day, if I'm not going to do myself any good being kind of hung up on it in my head anyway, thinking you're full of shit anyway. That's not really doing me any good.
No.
What probably will do me good is actually just believing that you have the ability to get somewhere like that. And people kind of get worried and they say like, oh, but what if it makes people believe that they can and then they can't and it's not good for them? I think that's probably a little bit more applicable to aesthetics. Maybe saying like, oh, hey, look, you can walk around like this all the time. That's a bit different. Humans as we are, I do believe we are fairly naturally the word isn't maybe narcissistic, but we are focused on the way we look. And I think anybody who says they're not is full of shit. Because it might not even be that you care what your body fat is. Some people care about their hair, their skin. So we are focused on that. Whereas with what you're doing, I mean, it's I don't know how it wouldn't benefit someone if kids think that or if there's teenagers or guys coming up now getting stronger and they think that the possibility for them to get there that strong is there, then I can only really see it as a motivator unless they choose to use it in the opposite way, So it is in powerlifting a lot though, man. One thing I will mention as well though, which we all have sponsors, so I'll use it as a sneaky Achievement Apex have a great power bar. They do have a great power bar. And
listen, tell them to send it me and I'll use it in every video. I need a new power bar. I want my own power bar.
You know what?
I really do.
This is funny. I recently had I spoke to a female powerlifter here named Jamie Morris, and she.
Oh yeah, I know her. Yeah,
you know Jamie Morris. Yeah, so she's not far off. I personally do believe she's really not far off pulling the world record. Her deadlift
undoubtedly,
yeah. Her deadlift technique is insane, and I personally just think one of the biggest things is that she's just shredded all the time. So if she's probably
Yeah, she's a freak. Yeah,
yeah,
she's a freak.
she is, yeah. So if she's willing to maybe put on a little bit more weight, and I think dial, like a lot of these powerlifters, the thing about it is, especially someone like Jamie, is she's squatting and benching like crazy as well. So sometimes with these people, you almost just want to go, fuck, have a break from that for a little bit and just deadlift for
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, and just
And
focus one. Yeah, and I think
well,
that's like it's like with me. Like I didn't want to focus bench press the way that I have. It's quite funny. If bench press was always my favorite lift. It was always my favorite lift, but it wasn't a lift that I focused heavily. Like I would really enjoy doing it more than anything else, and I would probably still hit it twice a week, but I was still hitting my other compounds of deadlift and squat. And then in March 22, February 22, in February 2022, I slipped a disc in my lower back. So pretty much what I did was I was T-bar rowing, was fine, felt good, finished the set. And then as I was dropping it, I just felt a twinge in my lower back. Pretty much couldn't walk. And then what I'd done was I'd slipped a disc in my lower back that had pressured my sciatic nerve. So I was like absolutely, legs felt like I didn't work anymore. I literally had to crawl out of the gym on my hands and knees like a dog. Went straight to the hospital. I was on, all forms of morphine and Oromorph and every nerve muscle relaxer you can imagine, just trying to free up the space in my back. And it was really bad. And for about 3 to 4 months, anytime I'd bend over or move a certain way, I'd twinge. Not only would I twinge, but my hip or either side of my hip would rest to one side. So if my back would twinge, what would happen is to relieve it or for my body to be able to function, my body would become offset. So I'd almost have like a zigzag in my spine where my hip would rest to one side and I'd walk almost like I was fucking lopsided. So I was like, what, I was super terrified of deadlifting. I was super terrified of squatting just because every time I tried to do the movement, it would flare immediately. And I'd be like, oh my God, that's killing me. But benching didn't hurt, which is why bench became so focused over the last 18 months, which is why bench started moving the way it did, because I just focused it because I couldn't really do anything else. But I also then began to use it as an excuse to neglect the other two, because odds are I pretty much recovered after, 4, 5, 6 months. I was pretty much good, but I was so in love with that bench press that I just started neglecting squat and dead. So, like this week, I did one squat session before I went to LA about 3, 4 weeks ago. And I did a squat session 2 days ago. So it's the second squat session I've done in 18 months. And it was fun. It feels good to squat again. It feels good to squat pain-free too. And so it's time to start pushing the back out and deadlift now as well. Quite excited to see where I can get to. But I do think I can get a good... I'm confident I can get 1,000 kilo total. I really am, at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd be interested in what are your best numbers on squat and deadlift? Just obviously you haven't trained them that much, but what are the best you've done there?
So before injury, my best squat was 300 kilo, which, like I said, I didn't push them enough. And then my deadlift was what was it? Was it sumo as well? Was it? No, it wasn't. It was conventional. My best conventional was 310. So they weren't where they should be. And I think the 310 wasn't even a full lockout. Yeah, it wasn't even a full lockout. I'd say my best deadlift's like 305. There were never lifts that I pushed hard enough. I think one thing that I guess has given me like a new sense of belief is with how hard I've pushed bench press, and now I've seen what it's done for me. It makes me think just what could happen if I focus the same amount of effort into those two, and what they could become too. Because clearly I'm strong. Clearly my body's capable of this. So what could happen if I focus this into squat and into deadlift? I'm not going to lie. Deadlift is a movement I've never been super comfortable with. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the way my leverages are set up, the way my body's set up. I just really struggle with deadlifting. It's not a movement that I enjoy. It's not a movement that it's not a go-to for me. If you ask me, how you're going to set up your week, I'd definitely bench and squat before I deadlift, just because it's the last thing that I want to do. But squat wise, I'm really getting back into squatting. Feels good again and it feels fun. So I mean, the aim for me is to try and get back to at least a minimum 300 kilo squat before the end of this year, really. 2 days ago, I squat 252 kilo. Like I said, it's the second time I've squatted in 18 months. So to be able to squat 252, I'm pretty happy with. But yeah, I just need to get that volume working again. I just need to get working and start committing time. I think the plan now, rather than doing 2 bench sessions a week, is to probably do 2 leg sessions a week, just to really start to counteract it. So yeah, excited.
Yeah, it'll be good to see what happens, man. I mean, to be fair, I was going to say with deadlifts, the leverage probably because of the weight would be a thing, right? I mean, what are you, 175, 180 kilos?
175 kilo.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, man, it's you see it every time. You know,
Yeah.
you would be aware of it. You know, the bigger guys and their deadlifts are always that little bit lower because the
Yeah.
leverages aren't there. It's
Yeah.
weird that we see that too. I remember you're always thinking, you know, I mean, surely if you're a bit bigger, you'll be able to deadlift more. But I mean, look at the strongest guys in the world now, whether you're talking about John Hack or Jamal Browner. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
these guys aren't that big. And if they got
No.
bigger, their deadlifts would suffer.
Yeah. I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
what about your squat? Is it low bar or is that high bar?
So the squats I've done recently have all been SSB on a safety bar. Um, I really, really struggle with mobility, but more so now. And I think it's because of abused bench press. I think because of abused bench press so much, and I've made my front delt so dominant, I'm really struggling with mobility behind the neck. So it's something that I need to try and get used to again. Probably get myself on a monolith is going to be the best thing on a decent squat bar, because at least on a monolith I've got the freedom to actually get my hands wide and then to squat behind the neck, as opposed to using an SSB. So it's something that I'm going to test shortly, and hopefully we get a good response on. I'm just trying to not tear anything at the front. I'm so tight here, which is a concern, and it shows how dominant my front, upper part has become here, because I can genuinely feel it. The tension just doing that. It's like my delts are saying no, like straight away, come back. And it's so compact. But it also shows I've clearly neglected my rear delts, because it shouldn't be like that. So I need to focus a lot more rear delt too. It's funny how I'm realizing all this as I'm like, reopening into squat and stuff. I'm like, fuck, clearly I've not done enough rear delts, and now I'm paying for it. So yeah, face pulls are now on the agenda a few times a week.
Yeah, it's funny though you say that. It's just conversations I've had with people before, and physios and other coaches and stuff as well. It's like you say, oh, this shouldn't be like this. And maybe for general health purposes, you know what I mean, or shoulder health, or everything's context, because when you say that, you also, on the other hand, can't help but think you can bench 300 kilos with it like that. So
Yeah.
I think we start to learn, especially when it comes to lifting or just athletes in general, is sometimes the general health way is very different from the most optimal strength way.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
we see this with a lot of people, man. Deadlifters who deadlift incredibly well with rounded upper backs, or some even rounded backs, even in the lumbar area as well. People will, and squatters, some squatters squat. You see some people lift and you just can't help but look at them and think that looks horrible. Yet they're performing at the highest level. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when you do implement other accessories, whether it helps or you might find that there'll be a balance needed in terms of detriment. Because that's why I asked with squatting. I'd say 80% of people I know that low bar squat have to be careful because it affects their bench press. So it's interesting in the sense, like you said, you focused entirely on something and you're arguably the strongest person in the world at it. And, you've mentioned before, I wasn't sure whether you were going to stay natural forever, but then you made a comment. Are you planning on being
so the reason, so to touch on it, I'll touch on two real quick. So what you were just saying about, like how maybe it's the most kind of optimal thing for my chest. So I was having a conversation with Daniel Ryhoff, who's a big American powerlifter. I'm sure you know of him.
Yeah, massive, so strong bench.
Yeah. So me and Ryhoff, we're good friends. We talk a lot. But we were actually speaking. So I went for a deep tissue massage probably about 8 weeks ago now. It was all front chest focus, delt focus, rear delt focus, just anything to loosen up this area. And what I tend to get is tightness in my left side because I'm a left dominant presser. So I've always been left-handed. My left side is my stronger side. So I'm very dominant in the left side in all my presses. And so obviously it's where most of my twinges and kind of, strains come into play, because it does a lot of carrying for me. So it's the kind of the area that I need the most work on. So I went and had a deep tissue massage. I'm sponsored by a guy who, gives me full, kind of recovery therapy. So I went and seen him and he did a full deep tissue massage on me. Now, obviously from a health perspective, from a physio, from a fitness physio, and from all those perspectives, this is the right thing to do, is to get some blood flow into there, is to loosen the muscle and to support these strains. But Ryhov had a very different opinion, and the more I listened to him, the more it made complete and utter sense. He said the reason that you don't want to get deep tissue done on the front is because what you're doing is, if you've got tightness here in your delts or in your chest, odds are the tightness is becoming because your body's, it's trying to protect something. The reason you're tight is protection. Even if you have got strains and pulls there, if you've got small things, you're very tight there because your body knows it has to protect the area. Meaning that when you're bench pressing, you're actually safer being as tight as you are because you're nice and tight. Your muscles are, they're there. They're trying to protect. What happens is that when you go and get a deep tissue and you release all of that tightness, you're actually opening yourself up more likely to injury, which is why, it's recommended that actually after a deep tissue, you should leave it a couple of weeks before you start going super heavy again, because you really are leaving yourself open to some form of new injury or strain because you've taken away all that tightness and protection. And I took that on board. I really did, because it's funny because I had that deep tissue done and then it almost felt worse. I was complaining about a strain in my left side for a couple of weeks. I was still benching through it. I PR'd twice through the strain. So it's not like it was affecting my power. It was just a pain, that's all. But because I didn't want the pain, I went and got a deep tissue. And then a week later, I was struggling to bench 90%. I couldn't get my 90%. And I was like, what's going on? And it was like it had worsened. It was like there was a new pain there. And I'm like, what the fuck? So since then, I've kind of been like, you know what? I'm going to stay away from deep tissue for a while. I'm still using the muscle gun. I've got a muscle gun at home that I use, you know what I mean? And I'll still kind of beat down a little on my upper chest and on my, my delts and stuff, and even on my triceps. But I don't do it to a point where I start to cause pain or bruising. Do you know what I mean? I just do it for a bit of blood flow more than anything.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I did a workshop here with I'm sure you're familiar with Pro Raw Gym in Melbourne. And so one of the guys, I think he works out of there as well. I think he's actually more than a physiotherapist, but his name's Andrew Locke, and him and an osteopath that he was doing the course with, Danny Antonellos, came and did a course with us, and they mentioned a few things while they were there, and a lot of the stuff they talked about were activation stuff. So it was a whole workshop on essentially glutes. And I remember thinking to myself before I even went to this, I'm like, how are we going to have a whole workshop about your ass? Surely there's got to be more than that. And it was all about hip flexors and things like that. And about, one of the examples they kept on using is a big problem people have is, hip flexors. The hip flexors are tight, so they'll stretch them. They'll try spending all this time stretching them. And then I did a podcast with Danny where we went on even more about it. And one of the things that, we kind of kept on coming back to was that she never gave her clients stretching ever. Right. And I was, what, never? I said, surely, it's a general consensus. It's good. She said, no. She goes, I'd never give a client a stretch. I said, so what happens at the end of a workout? She goes, they finish their workout and that's it. And I said, so you never, ever prescribe stretches? And she goes, look, in a very rare case, if it's specific, maybe, but for the most part, no. She goes, because a tight muscle is generally a strong muscle. She goes, if it's tight, then it's strong. She goes, there's a reason it hasn't, torn or broken in a way. Yeah. So she goes, what you really want to do more than anything, she goes, stretching that muscle isn't actually going to help you get what you probably want out of it. She goes, what you could be better off doing is, for instance, if your hip flexors are tight, work on activating your glutes before you do an exercise. Or if your pecs are tight, work on activating your rear delts. And I'm sure you do certain things like that before you bench, right? You see people doing banded face pulls and pulls and all things like this. That's
exactly what I do. Yeah.
Perfect, right? And essentially it's supporting what you're saying. Massaging and stretching something or doing deep tissue or trying to loosen an area isn't actually going to do what you think it's probably, going to do. There's, like you've said, there's nothing to support it being useless or bad in general, but it wasn't actually helping you achieve essentially what you thought it was. And maybe bringing in more of that face pull work and bringing in more activation drills will actually achieve that.
Yeah. I think it's, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's room for it, in every essence of the word. I mean, for example, with me going on, I've got a family holiday coming up. So I might, just before my family holiday, go and get a deep tissue. At least then I know I've got some time for recovery before I get back. And I definitely think that deep tissue massage and that form of therapy is really good for bodybuilding and aesthetics, because obviously the blood flow that it curates and that fullness that it can give you, from releasing all that tension and tightness is really good for a fuller look. But I just think in certain aspects of this game, like for example, if you really want to focus benching 300, I mean, my goal now is to get 700 pounds. I really want to bench 700 pounds, 317.5 kilo. But if you said to me, what is everything I'm going to do before going for that, it definitely wouldn't be a deep tissue massage. It'd be eat everything in my house and sleep for the next 48 hours. And then obviously I do want to touch on, like you said, about the hopping on thing. So the reason I went and saw Dr. Imran Khan is because I intend to jump on. But obviously I wanted blood panel work before and then prepared for me to get blood panel work after. So at the moment, the plan for me is to hop on in probably about 3 weeks' time. I want to cut some more body weight first. So I'm currently going for a little cut. In fact, once we're done here today, I'm going to go and hit some cardio. And then I'm going to train back later on this evening. But yeah, the plan is to cut some body weight. How much, I don't know. But ideally, any will help. Luckily, one thing I can say is that my bloods have shown I've got no scary factors. So my diabetes numbers are really good. I'm nowhere near diabetic, not even close to pre-diabetic. My cholesterol's good. My kidneys are functioning really well. Everything's actually surprisingly very healthy considering my size, which, believe me, was a shock to me, because I was expecting at least something to be like fucking a bit whoa, hone that in, buddy. But actually, I'm good. So it was a surprise to me. I don't get me wrong. I don't let my body go completely off the rails. I do focus forms of recovery. I use the sauna 3 times a week. I use the steam room 3 times a week. I focus cold plunges. So I do focus forms of recovery quite consistently. But it was still surprising to me to see my bloods as clean as they are. But hey ho, I'll take it. I'm not gonna complain about it. You know what I mean? I'm happy that they are the way they are. So yeah, I intend to hop on. Planning is for it to be about 3 or 4 weeks time, and to be really transparent with you, I think I'm probably going to hop on around 350 to 400 milligram test, and then Anavar dosages 10 weekly, probably 2 doses 10 weekly, or 1 dose 10 weekly. I'm not too sure on the numbers of that yet. I've just heard that phrase used, and I know people that use it like that. But yeah, so likely 350 to 400 milligram test, and then Anavar, and then I will also likely begin to inject 2 peptides, so TB500 and BPC 157 injected, just for recovery. Yeah, so that's my intent. So I suppose a really exciting thing about that is a lot of people think I've been using. A lot of people think I've been using for quite some time, etc., etc. For me, what's most exciting is I know that, if you jump on a decent mill of tests, for example, 350, 400, a little more, you can see up to a 20 to 23% strength increase on bench press. So bench press is actually one of the movements that sees the biggest strength gain from steroid use, which is quite funny. I didn't know that, but the doc was telling me out of all the movements and compound lifts, bench press actually sees the biggest gain. So if you guys think I've been using, you're in for a real shock when I do, because if I gain 20% on that bench press, we're talking, world record numbers. So yeah, I'm really excited, to be honest. And I'm going to make sure still, regardless, that I'm healthy and I'm careful with it. I mean, a lot of people don't know, but I've got 2 sons. I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old son. And obviously, I have a family, I have a life, that I need to make sure that I'm here for and healthy for as long as I can be. At the same time, though, like I said it in Larry's video, and I do stand by it, like, nothing worth having is easy, and greatness and the idea of being the best to ever do it, the best to ever bench, the best to have ever done it. It comes with risks, and it comes with formalities that you can't really, avoid. So if that's shortening my life expectancy by 10, 20 years, by 30 years to be known as the best to ever do it and to leave a legacy for my children, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, it sounds like you've got a pretty good baseline for what you're going to be doing as well. You're not 305 kilo bench press, the most being pressed at the moment, technically by Julius at 355, which I did hear a little. I did hear a little bit about that as well. I wasn't sure if there was a few issues with the record that he holds. I think there might have been a couple of issues with it, but I could be wrong. Jumping on now, I mean, you're talking about testosterone. which is, I mean, some of the people that I'm surrounded by are on fucking the craziest shit, man. And I'm sure you know a lot of people that are as well.
Yeah.
Larry's a great example. You met Larry.
Yeah.
I mean, we all
Yeah.
know what he's gone through. He's very open about
Yeah.
what he's gone through. And, you know, it's interesting what you've said you're going to start on. Obviously, you've got a lot of advice about it from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty good compared to what some people I think try to jump on. I know a few people who in their first year were already on things like Tran and just sort of playing with the really strong stuff. And the peptides that you mentioned, I actually was informed about recently. I had a guy that I know that tore his labrum squatting, and ended up I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks, and he saw like dramatic improvement from running both of those, and ended up I think he squatted like 312 and a half under 90, and after that issue happening, so he was pretty good, like something like that can throw people out for a year. So I think the attitude's probably the biggest part, man. I think that's the biggest thing that you like. That's pretty much what can break you. A lot of people have the wrong attitude, and so your attitude is going to be the reason that even if you use something, I mean, let's face it, testosterone, you're not going to shorten your life with a bit of testosterone, man. I personally don't see any correlation there. I don't think there's any science to support the fact that that's life shortening.
Yeah, I think more to the point, the reason I say life shortening is because of my size, and I think
course,
when I do jump on tests, I'm obviously going to increase my muscle mass. It's going to get very stressful for my heart over the next, kind of, I'd say 5 to 10 years are going to be a really stressful time for my heart because I am going to give it everything 100%. So I think that's the biggest concern is just probably the damage that I'm doing to my heart over time. Not so much the substances that I'll take. But yeah, every game comes with risks, right? Like anything that is worth doing, anything that it's not easy and it comes with risks, and you have to be able to commit and sacrifice different things. But truly, like I completely stand by the idea. You could why live 80 years and die and have nothing for it, have no story to tell, nobody talks about you. Like, why? What was the point? What was the point in that existence? Like for me, at least, anyway. Other people might look at it differently, but I'd rather live 50 years and people like, fuck, man, that guy was, he was the one. He was the shit. Like, yeah, I died at 50, cool. But my kids, my grandkids, they'll tell stories. People know who I was. People know the name. They'll never be able to dispute it. Whereas I feel, if I was, 85 and I lived an okay life, but none of it really mattered. For me, that's it's really easy to pick one of those at least.
Man, let's face it. Do you know anyone at 80 who's having a fucking good time? there's a few, but I don't know about you. If I eat too much Mexican food sometimes and go too hard at the gym, I'll take a shit that hurts and have a sleep that makes me feel like I haven't slept. And I'm 27 and I feel like I'm falling apart. So, I can't imagine how, I recently have some sort of close friends, and there was a place I was staying with for a little bit, and they're only in their 50s and 60s, man. And the amount of fucking pills and shit they're taking every day. And you just look at it, man. And not everyone can control that. Sometimes it's genetic and stuff. But like you said, man, I personally am not, striving to be 85, 90 years old. I personally, if I got to pretty much 50 or 60, I reckon I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, man. It's like, look, we've already lived like almost 30 years now. Like, fucking hell, it's another 30 sounds
I've had enough. I'm ready to get off.
You have days like that for sure.
Yeah.
But that's why I want to touch on some of the points. I've written some notes, and there's some, and we've covered a fair amount of it. But I guess one of the things that I want to, because I'd written all the stuff about when you'd started lifting and your brother and stuff, because I remember watching the video with Larry, and when you mentioned your brother, and my mind got caught on that for a little bit. I was like, fuck, 17, Jesus. But to be fair, this is another reason why when you've talked about where you're at genetically and your ability to bench what you have, I think these days I'm happy I'm not a powerlifter, because the people that are in this game now and the people that are coming up are fucking insane. And Two,
Absolutely.
I'm becoming a lot more open-minded because, man, I think when it comes to aesthetics, there's definitely a lot more bullshit, and there's plenty of people I'll look at and go,
Yeah.
oh, come on, man. Like, you see people like fucking Simeon Panda and shit, and you're like, oh, like, don't try and
Shut
sell.
the fuck up. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And he gets so
Yeah.
shitty, bro. Like, it's, you've
Yeah, I know.
seen the videos where he's gotten hell angry, and it's like, man, that stuff's different. But in terms of strength, like, I saw a 15-year-old kid the other day squat like 270 in sleeves, and I was just like this kid's 15, man.
Bro, speaking of 15-year-old, there's a 15-year-old that I follow and that Daniel Ryhoff follows. We speak about him quite a lot. His name's Marcis Lord is his on like IG and on TikTok. He's 15 and he benches 455 pounds.
Fucking hell.
So 206 kilo, 205 kilo.
Yeah,
Kid's
see,
a freak. Kid's a freak, bro.
Yeah, this is
and
what
it's
I
not
mean.
like it's not bad form either. Like it's not like dreadful form, like super crazy arch. Like yeah, his ass comes off the bench a little, but he's 15 benching 205 kilo. Like I don't care. You know what I mean? And like not only that, but like bro, he does good mornings with like 180 kilo at 15. He's the kid's a different animal. Like people don't like. I think now what's happening is like obviously genetically as we advance and supplements become more focused and different things, and not only that, but I don't feel like there's ever been a time like right now where you're encouraged to kind of get into fitness at such a young age. You know, like this whole like Sigma male stoicism kind of thing that's going on is just putting kids in the gym super early. And people hate it. People think it's so misogynistic, but I think it's amazing because I think I would rather have 13, 14, 15-year-olds in the gym than out on the street with a blade in groups and gangs, you know, like it just makes it's such a good thing. And not only that, but I don't know a single person that's ever gone to the gym and said that was a bad idea. You're always going to take some away from it, you know, whether it's something that you apply to your social life, the way you care for yourself, the way you apply yourself at work or in different things, or how your dedication and your consistency works and how you change your mindset and your persona and you build yourself in a better way and you become more confident. The benefits to gym are endless. So like to get into it from a young age is so cool. And it's so like I think the thing that's like so annoying to me, it's like a culture on TikTok. And you see a lot of people post about it and support it. People are like, oh, the broccoli heads walking in the gym, blah, blah, blah. The kids walking in the gym, hogging all the benches. Like, bro, I salute that shit. I think that's sick. You know, seeing a group of 15, 16-year-old kids in the gym, for me, that's cool as fuck. Like, yeah, I'd rather they were in the gym, bro. What do you want them to be doing? Out there involved in all the gang stuff that's going on, or, you know, in crazy stuff that's going on. Like, I'd rather they were in the gym, bro, focusing themselves at a young age, building themselves to be a good, strong young man. Like, it makes what, you know, if my kids, I mean, I already know my sons are going to want to go to the gym. My 8-year-old asks me all the time if he can come to the gym with me, but it's exciting for me to know that my boys are going to get into, you know, strength. I think they'll be into strength. If they're not, I really don't care. I don't care if they go and do ballet, to be honest with you, whatever they want to do. But something tells me they're going to be into strength. And I love the idea that they're going to be training from, you know, as young as age as they want to, and that they're going to have a passion and a drive for something and something that they can hone in and find discipline in from a young age.
Yeah, man. I think I'd like totally on it with you. Like I constantly am oh man, the amount of times I've complained about just like how in America it's like why the fuck did I have to learn about rocks? And in America there's fucking 14-year-olds benching 3 plates in a gymnasium. Like why couldn't I pick that subject at school? You know what I mean? It's fucking I didn't start training until I was 20, and I'm like, fuck, like you know, and the amount I feel like I left so much on the table because people start training when they're 14 now, and by the time they're 19, you're like, this cunt looks like a fucking Calvin Klein model. Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
it's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's why as well, like, you know, like we said before, when people jump on and they're younger as well, it's like they're already young, their hormone profile's probably in an amazing spot, and then they jump on and they might already be naturally strong, and then they might be a super responder, and then all of a sudden you've got someone who they lift something and you're just like, it just makes you want to fucking stop. You're like, Jesus,
makes you want to vomit. Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Once again, statistically, like you said, we've got more people lifting than ever. So you're gonna come across that. You're gonna find that every day you scroll on your Instagram, you're gonna see someone else doing something crazy because more people are doing it than ever. And
absolutely.
you know, it's funny that I just want to mention before that you said the Sigma male stuff and that, and it reminded me of the songs that are on the videos and stuff at the moment, because I saw just on your story before we watched you in the car singing the After Dark song.
Bro, I love that song. It just gets me in such a mindset. I'm like, I'm ready to crush the fucking world when I listen to that song. I don't know why, but I'm just ready to go. And the worst thing is, like, I was listening to that on the way home from the gym. Like, I'd already hit the session. I was deflated, but I was still just, the moment that song came on, I was ready to turn around and like just go back. I was like, we can do it again. We can do it again. Like, I don't know. I just like it's, I mean, such as like sore subject, but like the whole Andrew Tate thing, right? Like, you either love him or you hate him. He's either this or that. Bro, I'm going to be completely honest. I love the guy. I think Andrew Tate is one of the best things to happen to young men in this world in a long, long time. I think the way society is now is it is built to weaken men and to destroy masculinity 100%. There's no doubt about it. Being masculine now is frowned upon. It is something that isn't encouraged, and it is something that is being taken out of our schools, out of our education systems, and out of day-to-day life by peer pressure onto adults. And ultimately, children are running their parents now, not the other way around. Parents no longer raise their children, but children are coercing their parents. So to have, as dumb as it sounds, people can hate on him all they want. People can say he's misogynistic. People can say anything. But at the end of the day, if you were to take context from random people, twist their words and paint them in a scenario that you wanted to, you could make anyone seem any way you wanted. But for me, that guy is generally probably the reason that like 20-30% of young guys right now are believing in themselves, finding confidence, doing things with their life, trying to become something. And I think that's the biggest thing the world's missing now is self-belief. No one believes in themselves anymore. Like, you know, ultimately people see samples. So people look at someone and go, yeah, he's successful. And he's good at what he does, but he must have just had a natural this, or must have had this happen for it to be possible, and that can't be possible for me. Like, it's actually the opposite. Odds are they were completely not cut out for it, but they were willing to stay consistent and apply themselves, and it happened. And I don't think people realize that that is possible for everyone. Like, that for me, there is no like blockade. Like, people are so focused on the idea of reasons why they couldn't do something. If you just applied yourself, it can be done 100%. Like, consistency overall and self-belief. Like, you'll see a lot of like kind of reels and videos and like, you know, like those kind of motivation reels where it says, you know, about putting it into the universe. Like, I'm such a strong believer in that. Like, such a strong believer in the idea that if you manifest something, but don't just manifest it internally, speak it into existence. But you have to believe what you're saying, speak it into existence, and believe every word that comes out your own mouth, no matter how unrealistic it sounds. Like, I'm going to tell you something now that I haven't told anyone, not a single person. But 2 years ago, I was saying on my children's lives, I'm going to train with Larry Wills. 2 years ago. And this is before I even had a TikTok account. This was before anyone knew who I was. But I was saying in my fucking gaming room down here on my own at like 3 a.m. when I was watching fucking motivation videos on YouTube, I was like, I'm going to train with Larry Wills one day. I am going to make that happen. I know I'm going to train with Larry Wills. And obviously, like, at the time, I was just some idiot that nobody knows, sitting in his gaming room, not, you know, not with an incredible bench press and nothing to really ever support the idea that that would happen. But it's happened. And I can't explain the idea in my head enough that manifestation is real. Like, and I know that, you know, it's hard to look at as in saying, well, I want this, so that means it's going to happen. No, obviously not. But what it means is, if you begin to put the words into this, you know, into this space, if you begin to speak into existence what it is that you want, you begin to believe it. And so because you begin to believe it, you begin to take small actions and make small subconscious decisions that build toward that thing that you're trying to manifest. And then before you know it, it begins to tumble. And then you're there and it's happened, and you're like, no way, it happened. And no, it's not a miracle. It didn't just click and happen. But what you did was you began to make conscious or small subconscious decisions that had small incremental plays toward that thing that you wanted to happen. And then it happened. And it's like with me, like, yeah, I sat here 2 years ago, so I'm going to train with Larry Wills one day. I was full of shit. You know what I mean? I was full of shit. I could have been full of shit if I didn't put into play what I knew I had to put into play. And that was to just be consistent, work hard, and build a social. That's what I did. And then it happened. And the funniest thing is, it's not even like I hit him up. You know, Larry's manager hit me up. Larry's manager messaged me and was like, yo, will you be in LA at some point? And I was like, listen, I will be there next fucking week if it means I'm training with Larry. Do you know what I mean? Just say the word. So it's mental how that stuff works. But for me, like if there was anything that anyone could ever take away from me, it's just believe in yourself, no matter what it is. If you're good at something and you believe that you're good at it, then commit yourself to it and manifest what it is that you want from it. And just keep saying it, and don't let the vision slip. No, like it'll get hard. Nothing in life worth having is ever easy. If it was easy, then everybody would have it. You have to remember that. If you want something and you think it's hard, that means it is worth having. If it was not worth having, or if it was really easy, then everybody would have it. So bear that in mind, that you have to be able to overcome adversity and apply yourself in some way that is going to require more from you than average to attain what it is that you want to attain, but it will always worth it in the end.
Fucking hell, you've hit me with some. I know whoever's listening to this is fucking. They want to put After Dark on and sing it in their car now. That's just. That was probably the best transition ever, because you started talking about Andrew Tate, and while I will say that I do agree with you, all I could think was, "Fuck, he's fucked this podcast now." I said, you know, half the world isn't going to listen to it now. It's certainly not getting played in Romania. I'll say that. But look, I do agree with you in the sense that I always say that I put, you know, some of the stuff about what he's done and all that sort of stuff aside, and I look at him for the way for the stuff that we're talking about here, what he's done for people, the mindset stuff that he puts out there. Man, there's a reason. Like people like to argue it, right? People like to argue and get upset about it, but there's a reason that it was everywhere. And that's what pissed people off that didn't like it, because they were like, it's getting so popular, it's influencing so many people. There's a reason for that. You know what I mean? There's a reason.
People identify with it. Yeah. People can relate.
No one would pay attention to it if it was bullshit. It's the same reason you or me might sit here and might go, you know what? Fuck what everybody says. Ariana Grande's music is dog shit and I hate hearing it in the gym. You know what? I fucking do hate hearing it in the gym. And you might be a huge fan of it. I'm not. But can't sit here and say it's shit music and that no one should like it, because there's a reason that fucking billion people listen to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't mean that everyone has to feel the same way about something, but Andrew Tate is probably one of the best examples, man. And I do agree with you. And in terms of the mindset side of things, I am shifting the way that I think, and speaking to people like yourself is helping, because I even do it now. People go, "Oh man, the podcast seems to be doing pretty well." And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm just talking to people." Man, I like this.
It's fun, mate.
Why the fuck am I not telling myself that I can be fucking Joe Rogan one day? You know what I mean? I can be in that position, because there's no real reason why I shouldn't do that. I mean, at the end of the day, I just had an idea one day. I said to a guy that I was working with, he was doing a podcast. I wanted to jump on. I said, let's do it together. And he said, go and do your own. And I was like, I was a bit taken back, you know what I mean? I remember feeling like, oh, okay, you don't want me to be a part of your thing. You know, I remember at first, it really made me feel like shit, man. And then I went, all right. And I did one episode and then I uploaded it online. And then I've been doing it for 3.5 years now, and I'm over 100 episodes, and I've just got a couple of sponsors and things are headed in the right direction. And I've got a super supportive girlfriend. I've got supportive friends. I've got people who are like, man, you're doing really well. Like, you're killing it. Keep going. And I'm still not doing what I should be doing. And I still have days where I'm talking to myself down about it. Oh man, it's, you know, you got to get, I'm telling myself, oh fuck, maybe you should go work away again, or maybe you should go get a job and then just do what everybody else does so you can afford shit, because I'm not in a great financial position, or I'm doubting myself. What if I do all this for a year and it goes nowhere?
But at least you know that's why. Because the reality is that risk is everything, but at the same time, where would you be? For example, let's say you were working in the mines for the next 2 years and you didn't do the podcast. I can tell you one thing definitively: in 2 years' time, you're going to be in the same boat with the same mental mindset, doing the same shit that you were doing 2 years ago, and you're not going to feel any better for it. At least now you're doing something that you enjoy. It's a passion. You have an attachment to it, so there's a form of enjoyment in it. So even if in 12 months' time this folds and it's not something that you thought it would be, you can say you tried. At least you tried. At least you had the balls and the confidence to go, do you know what? Yeah, but I tried, rather than being that everyday Joe that has pure fear and is scared to step out of the norm. Because,
Mm.
you know, like for me, like coming out of work, after working full time for 13 years, like this has been terrifying for me. Like stepping away from my job was terrifying. I have two sons, I have a home, I have bills, I have things that I have to maintain. So it's put me in a boat where I've gone, I have no choice but to succeed. So just look at it like that. Allow it to be your driver of it's not that I can't succeed or I might not. I have no choice but to succeed because this is where I've applied myself. And that's how it's going to go. It's funny you mention it about podcasting because I used to run a podcast, so it's actually on the wall behind me. It says it there, the Bakery Podcast. I had this graphic done on the wall behind me, graffiti when I was doing it. So during 2020, during COVID, when the lockdown first kicked in, you know, like early January kind of time of 2020, just before COVID really hit, I was always big in kind of esports, big into, you know, Call of Duty gaming and, you know, Pro Card and etc. And Warzone. I've always been a big gamer. This is a gaming room that I'm sitting in right now. I've got a free monitor set up in front of me. My PS5's there. I'm a bit of a nerd. So I've always been into gaming. And then I started a podcast in like early 2020, just around kind of esports. And I'd bring guests on, you know, like pro COD players and sit and speak to them about their life and what it is that made them compete in COD and you know, talk about their intricacies of competitiveness and how it applies to everyday life and, you know, just little things like that. And I built quite a big audience pretty quickly. In fact, I closed out 2020 being one of the top 100 UK leisure podcasts on Spotify. So I had a really good first year. And then I let it go, and it's such a shame. I think, but the telling thing for me there was it wasn't my passion. It was just a hobby to fill time. So what I'd done with the podcast was I'd started it in early 2020 because I'd seen that there was a gap in the market of Call of Duty coverage where we weren't looking at ideal one-on-ones with these players and getting to know them as people. We knew them as online personalities and players, but we didn't know them as people. And so that was my niche. That was my bridge into that area, was to begin doing that. And before I knew it, I had some of the biggest names in the space. I don't know if you know anything about gaming, but you know, people like Optic Hex, the guy that owns Optic Gaming, I had him on twice. I've had some really big names on from, you know, like content creation spaces and vice versa. But what I found was I just didn't have a love for it. It was more of just a hobby. And that's one thing with me is it's quite funny how I work. I have been involved in many small pots. So what I have is I'm quite an addictive personality. So when I do something, I do it well and I apply myself very quickly, but the longevity of it will be based on my passion for it. So if I'm very passionate, longevity will be a very long time and I'll always do it. But odds are if it's just a small dopamine hit for an amount of time, I won't continue with it. And actually, the more I look back on it, the podcast is the one thing I regret that I didn't continue with. So if there's anything you can take away from that, it's push it and just keep going. Because what's the worst thing? The thing with a podcast is what's the worst thing that can happen? You ask someone to be a guest and they say no. Is that the first time you've been told no in your life? Oh well, there's still 999,000 other people to ask today. Do you know what I mean? Send out 100 messages a day. Who cares? Like I used to push the boat out to people that I had no right messaging. At least that's how you feel at the time. You know what I mean? You feel like, why am I doing this? Why am I messaging this person? They're not going to respond to me. They're not going to care. And do you know what? 99 of them might not, but one will. One actually will. And one will take the time out of the day and give it to you. And so then you build a bond with that person because you now think, you know what, you've given me your time and you didn't have to. So you get to know them and you put more time into your questions. And it's just the way that you'll build yourself over time is through that intricacy and through that connection with your audience and through that connection with your guests. So I wish the podcast was something that I continued. I really do. That's one thing that I wish I continued with because I think the main reason I stopped it was because Call of Duty as an esport was dying. Competitive COD was dying. It was falling off a bridge. Coverage was getting really bad. You know, the personalities coming up were all really samey. Everyone had the same story. It was really boring. Podcast episodes felt very, you know, mundane and similar. And so it kind of bored me to a point where I stopped doing it. But what I should have done was just switched completely to a newer audience and to a newer guest set and gone into fitness and lifting and, you know, started having guests on from those spaces. But instead I just let it slip. And it is a huge regret for me, definitely. But I mean, just sitting here and talking to you, you know, you hold a conversation really well. So it's an absolute compliment to you. I think you're going to do great in the space.
No, thank you, man. I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, you're a good example of that exact thing. I mean, man, I had no right messaging you. You've got a really great upward, trajectory at the moment. You're headed in a direction that's, I mean, that's one of the things I want to ask you and get into, but you're able to stop working, which is like, once again, like I said, these days is just really crazy to get your head around. The internet has
Yeah.
done wonders
Yeah.
for our society, but man, same sort of thing. Jamie, a lot of people, you get worried, and as an Instagram page, especially, you worry about that number. You go, fuck, all right. If I've got 1,000 or 2,000 followers, if I message someone that's got 30 or 40, they think I'm just going to do it because I want to try and get that coverage. Of course, that coverage is great. Who wouldn't want coverage? That's the point.
Yeah.
But then also, it's the sort of thing where I'm not messaging anyone who's got any that can apply coverage, because there's plenty of people that I don't ever have an interest in talking to, or I wouldn't want to try and talk to, simply because I don't personally believe that they're going to provide maybe what you've said before with some of the people where the guests aren't the same. You're not always going to get a good podcast out of someone, And
absolutely.
so speaking to you and looking at your content beforehand, I could tell pretty much straight away. I'm like, this guy's going to be talkative and we're going to be able to talk to each other. And more than anything, one of the biggest things that's important to me about my podcast is when I introduce you, like, you're Joshua Baker. That's who you are. You're a person, right? I don't want to speak to someone who wants me to sniff their ass the whole time,
No.
So that's a big thing, man. And like that, you're giving me just a conversation, and that's all I want a podcast to be. I don't want it to be an interview, and I certainly don't want to be that guy who, to be honest, I like knowing things about you and I want to have good questions, but I've always said that no one tells your story like you. So for the most part, I like not knowing something, because I'm always way more interested when I'm talking to you if I don't know everything about you, because then I'm hearing it for the first time too. And that creates natural reactions that then lead into conversations in natural, organic ways that sound more interesting for someone to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely.
If everything's structured like a question like this and a response and a question, it's a bit boring, I think, no matter who you're talking to.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you said just about, calling me Joshua. It's like Mike, my training partner, Luke, Joe, the three lads that I consistently train with, like, they don't know me as anything other than Josh, and that's what I love. Like, I think one of the most weird adjustment phases for me has been, obviously, people asking me for photos. I get that every day now, everywhere I go. I probably take 5-10 pictures a day. Depends if I'm going to like a city centre or to like a shopping centre or to another gym, I might take 30-40. It's getting pretty ridiculous, and I have no problem taking them at all. I love meeting people. I'm really grateful for everyone that follows me, supports me, likes, comments, shares, anything at all. I genuinely am. But some people, they look at you as a persona as opposed to a human. So it's interesting. Like, I had a guy approach me the other day. I was standing outside the gym, and he walked up and he went, "Can I take a picture?" Now, you haven't introduced yourself. You haven't told me you're a fan of me. You haven't said anything to me. You haven't asked me who I am. You just said, "Can I take a picture?" Like I'm a product, you know what I mean? For you to sell or to look at and to put. And that's the one thing I don't like, is I think people begin to treat you like you're some form of persona as opposed to a person. Like, I'm a person, and I'm very personable. So I'm good to speak to, and I'm good at speaking. I'm pretty fluent. I like having conversation. I like speaking to people that like me. I like meeting fans and meeting people that follow me and want to speak to me about stuff. I mean, one thing I actually pride myself on, which consumes far too much of my time, is I respond to every message I get, every message request I get, every DM I get, I respond to. I get hundreds a day, hundreds. And a lot of it is people saying, "Bro, thank you so much. You've inspired me." That's probably the biggest and most enjoyable part about all of this, is I get so many messages every day from kids, from 14, 15, 16-year-olds, but even up to guys that are like 28 that have come out of the army. 30 that have come out of the army and they've had no inspiration for ages, and they're like, "Bro, just want you to know, like, I got back in the gym because of you this week." Like, and it's like, holy shit, like, that fucking drives me even more. But yeah, I just think that's been a difficult phase for me, is to not be approached like I'm a human being, and to be approached like I'm a product or a persona. Because the Gym Reaper is definitely a persona. It's not who I am. I'm Josh Baker. I'm Josh Baker from little old Tipton in the UK, near Birmingham. I've got, 2 kids that I love dearly, and a partner that I love dearly. I've got a happy kind of life. And I've got good friends, and my good friends are the guys that I train with, Mike, Joe, and Luke. But they keep that real with me. Do you know what I mean? I am nothing other than Josh to them, and that's how I like it. Do you know what I mean? I'm so glad that I don't walk in the gym and they treat me differently. Do you know what I mean? And I really enjoy that. So yeah, it's been a difficult and weird kind of transition phase for me, I suppose.
Yeah, it would be. I feel like that's kind of what uh the online stuff's created, you know, for the most part. It's
Mhm.
created a real weird space around that sort of thing. And like, no, for myself, like I'm that kind of person where um I don't know, I think it comes down to who you are and your values and maybe your integrity personally as well. But like, I could see Andrew Tate and in person, for example. And if I was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
man," and he was like, "Fuck off," I'd be like, "All right, fuck you." Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
I'd just
yeah,
walk off and continue my day.
yeah,
I think a lot of people, uh, I don't know, they're like you said, the persona's there, so they kind of it's almost like they would care about what this famous person would feel
yeah,
about them. Where to
yeah.
me, I can't help but look at someone for just being a person.
Hmm.
So for me personally,
Hmm.
it's always really surreal if I've ever seen. I went and watched a comedian the other day, and he's not a massively famous guy. A little while ago, I went and watched you know who Tom Segura is.
Tom Segura, bro, he's my favorite comedian.
Yeah, yeah, man. He's honestly one of my favorites. Hilarious. And he
Love
came to
him.
Perth.
Yeah,
And I went and saw him. And I don't know, man. It's always a bit weird for me because it's just like I don't get that kind of star truck. To me, I feel like a lot of people will kind of, oh, I want to run up and shake his hand or say hello or touch him or hug him or get a photo. Personally, I almost kind of feel more comfortable not being near him. I almost kind of just liked watching him,
yeah,
and I have no, I don't know. I think that's probably what you're experiencing is people have this
yeah,
weird thing where they've seen you on a screen, so they're like, oh, I want
yeah,
to get a photo or shake your hand, or
yeah, yeah,
I'd want to meet you because I'd want to meet you to be
yeah.
like because you're a
As
person,
a
you know what I
human,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
So you know, and I would have brought it up at some point through this podcast or towards the end and said to you, man, like even just from us talking now, this has been a great podcast. And like, man, if you ever come to Australia, I would love to like even just be around when you bench press, man, and I'd love to meet
yeah,
you in
yeah,
person.
yeah,
Um,
man.
and man, I tell you right now, I hit up the guy and I will sort you out a fucking power bar to bench on, so you don't have
Let's
to
do,
use a
mate. Do
shitty
it.
bench bar.
If you could get me a power bar shipped out here, I will tag it in every video that I do. I need my own power bar, bro, because I'm sick of. Problem is at the moment, like me and the guys, we keep going to different gyms to train. And not only that, but like I'm one of those guys that likes to get around a little. You know, like I like to go to different gyms and experience different gyms. And not only that, but it's cool to go to different gyms because I like meeting new people. And obviously, I've got a lot of fans out there. So when I go to different gyms, they get to meet me, and that's a cool experience for me too. So I enjoy going to different gyms because it's really cool for other people to get to watch me bench too. So I need a power bar because I'll chuck it in the car and I'll take it everywhere with me. And it's another thing to touch on. You just mentioned about like the whole starstruck thing with like with people. I'm the same. It's like I don't see people as this or that. I just see them as like when I went and met Larry Wills. Yeah, you're Larry Wills, but you're also just a guy called Larry. So like that's why like it felt so natural to train with him. Like nothing was weird. I mean, when that camera cut off, me and Larry stood there. We took about 50 pictures with kids lined up like a huge group. We signed belts, t-shirts, hoodies, shoes, you name it. I can't. The weirdest thing I signed was an iPhone, which I was like, bro, are you sure? It wasn't even a case, it was the iPhone itself. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay. But after we did that, we went for lunch. Me and Larry, we went for lunch. We spoke business, we spoke different things, and it was super cool. Like he's such a genuine, cool guy. And then, like my last night in LA, I ended up in Austin McBroom's fucking Rolls Royce for SUV, driving down the 101 to a casino somewhere in LA. I was like, what's going on? I was like, am I living in a glitch right now? And it's just like it's crazy because that all comes from networking. Like another thing I like pride myself on, which I think a lot of people, if you can take something away from me, is network beyond your means. Like, don't ever view anything as unworthy in terms of networking. The more people you know, the better. It's always, and bear that in mind, you will have heard the phrase many times in life, but it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. It's true. It is about who you know in every sense of the word. The more people that you know, the more people that speak highly of you, the better general consensus around your name, the more people are willing to work with you and do things for you. So I've always been someone that specialized and pushed myself to network with people from years ago when I first started that podcast. I mean, another thing I didn't mention to you is I'm partnered on Twitch. I used to be a Twitch streamer too. I used to stream, all sorts of games. I don't know if you've heard of streamers like XQC and Trainwrecks and, Greek God X, but You know, I've streamed and played games with all of these guys. I used to be the number 2 streamer in the UK for Among Us at the time when it came out. You know, I was partnered on Twitch. I had a really good viewership then. And I networked really well then too. I played with, like, you know, people like Corinna Koff, FaZe Banks, Courage JD, Nade Shot from 100Ds, like all these people I've played with, I've built connections with, I've known. So, you know, when I went out to LA, Adam, who's one of the guys who I used to know from streaming, was like, yo, do you want to hit the casino with me in Austin? And I'm like, yeah. And, you know, that opportunity, and this is what you have to understand. I left LA $13,000 up because Austin McBroom gave me $500 to mess around with. And I jumped on Baccarat with him, which I've never played in my life, and somehow turned it into 13 Gs. But take all of that out of the picture. That opportunity only happened because I was willing to network 3 years ago with a guy that I didn't know called Adam and speak to him and put myself out there. Do you know what I mean? Else that wouldn't have happened. That opportunity would never have come. So you have to understand that a lot of time networking is investment in your future. If you can network correctly and network well and build good relationships with different people, sooner or later, across time and over time, those relationships begin to pay off in different ways, whether it's through a connection of a connection, or the person that you networked with is good friends with someone that you're now trying to speak to, and can you make that connection happen? So there's always benefits to networking, always.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I'm learning about, man, as well. And I think it's, like I said, it was a lot of my issue to begin with was not taking it seriously enough. You know, like I said, like doubting it. And, oh man, it's just a podcast.
Yeah.
But I don't look at it like that now. I did the same thing as coaching. You know, I've coached for probably about 8 years now. I worked in a lot of gyms and did group training, personal training, stuff like that. But I would always find myself almost brushing off my own ability. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you know, I know what I'm doing. You know, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I would completely disregard any time I'd help someone lose 30, 40 kilos or add 100 kilos to their total or something. I would just kind of be like, yeah, well, it's my job. That's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm not amazing because I'm doing my job, but where does that get you in life? You really have to back yourself, and I think have the right mindset behind things. And it also comes down to who you, like you said, networking with as well, and speaking to people like yourself. I don't want to talk to people who have the wrong mindset either. You know what I mean? That's the other thing about the podcast. As much as I want to speak to someone, I don't care if you've got 100,000 followers. If when I speak to you, you've got a negative mindset and you want to talk shit about me.
Absolutely.
It doesn't do anything for me. I feel I'm going to walk away from this podcast and I'm going to feel like I've had something added to me. I'm going to feel good because we've been speaking about things in a certain way, and we've been talking about things, and it's been a good conversation, and we've connected in a positive way. If I have a bad podcast, which I've had, and I'm sure you have too, it fucks your day. Like you walk away from it.
It's annoying because you invest time. Not only that, but I think the thing with podcasting as a podcast host, which I can relate to, which I suppose a lot of viewers and guests don't know, is that you mentally invest quite a lot of time into this before the podcast happens. You spend time preparing, you spend time planning your questioning and how you're going to approach it and what you're going to say, and trying to do it in a way that's going to be respectful and different things. So, you know, for you to invest that time and to come up with questions that you feel are going to be really open-ended and and encourage open, good, constructive answers, and instead they're very short answers that don't give you the answer you expected, it's quite annoying, and it can be really unsatisfying for you. I mean, I suppose it's like you said just about you know what, I'm going to give you a little snippet here. Like, one person who I met out in LA that was not what he appears to be is Bradley Martin. So Bradley Martin, I mean, everyone loves that guy. You know, he's like the one of the biggest and one of the most original influencers, of the Instagram era, and all over socials. But I'm gonna put it here first. I'm not a fan. He comes across as a completely different person, often on camera. Yeah, it's a persona, is what I'd say. He quite literally lives the persona lifestyle life of when the camera's on, he is that influencer, and when the camera's off, he is not a very nice person. At least I don't think anyway. Bearing in mind, I went to Zoo Culture and was benching 5+ plates on incline. He really didn't have any interest in coming over to me benching until I started getting to the bigger weights. All of a sudden, he wanted to be on the camera. He never introduced himself. He didn't give a care for who I was or who any of us were. Bearing in mind that we've paid $60 for a day pass to train in his gym, and I'm clearly not from the US. Now, when he came over, I said to him, look, et cetera, you might not know who I am, you might, but you've been someone that did a clap bench press before of 60 kilo. It's one of those famous ones that people know of. Well, I'm the guy that does it with like 150 kilo on incline. And he's like, what? No, not possible. And I showed him the video of me doing it. He's like, oh, actually, no, I might have seen you at some point. And he played it off in such a weird way, as though, like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about your existence. But it's like, it was obvious that you have seen me. I know that you've seen me. I know that you know what that is. You know, I know that you know what it is. But the way that he worded and acted it and just played himself out was just like, fuck, is that the kind of guy that you are? And just speaking on Zoo Culture as a gym as a whole, like, you know, I'm an honest guy. That gym, bro, it's not a gym at all. It is a, what's the best way I can put it? It's like a, oh, I can't even think of the best way to describe it. It's not a gym. Zoo Culture is not a gym. Like, if you're somebody, you know, if you don't have a following, if you're somebody that does not have some form of presence on social media, you do not matter. They want you $60 for the day pass, and then you can go and be quiet in the corner. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like a gym. It doesn't feel like somewhere you're welcome to come and train. It feels so artificial from the get-go that it's such an artificial gym. You know what I mean? It just feels so out of place. It doesn't feel like when you go in there, you're there in this kind of, you know, realm of place where we're all working hard and we all want to achieve something. It's more of you're valued on what you are and who you are. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to it being a space for fitness.
Fuck, man, it's disappointing, isn't it? It must have been disappointing for you. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that feeling, like you said, in person. It's kind of I mean, I'll be honest. Brad looks good, and he's occasionally funny, and that's probably sums up how I feel about Brad. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
sit here and say like, oh, I'm a massive Bradley Martin fan, because
Mm-hmm.
he's one of those guys that's like weirdly strong, but doesn't seem to take any of it too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of knew him as the guy that Dom Mazzetti made fun of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never really knew him. And anytime I kind of looked in anything he was doing, I never found my attention span sticking to it. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily saying this because you've had a negative experience, because I wouldn't have a negative thing to say about Brad, but I guess I don't have much, because that's probably
Mm-hmm.
all I really know about him. I just know that he owns Zoo Culture. And every single comment on every video I see of him is people in the comments talking about how he's going to sell kids drugs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all I've seen.
Look, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm speaking from a really anecdotal one-off experience, which I clearly am, that I could have caught him on a bad day. You never know. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I could have caught him on a bad day, and I could be completely wrong. And actually, he's a super genuine, really nice guy. He didn't give me that impression. That's all I can say. He didn't give me that impression. And you know, he was in there at the time training with two girls. He was shooting a YouTube video. This is one thing that kind of, I guess, told me what I need to know about him. And look, I guess it is a sense of entitlement at the same time, but at the same time, it's not. So when I hit the 5 plate set on incline and then the 5 1/4 plate set on incline, so I think I went up to about 520 pounds of incline on a day in there. He wanted his cameraman to get it. So he was shooting a YouTube video at the time with the two women that he was with in Zoo. He was doing stuff. Then he came over when I started hitting the heavier sets, and he wanted this on camera, on his camera. So I thought, cool, be part of Bradley's YouTube video. So I hit both the sets. He was convinced by them. He was happy with them, etc., etc. Then the YouTube video comes out, and I'm nowhere to be seen. In fact, I'm almost cut out of it completely, as though there's no form of where you can see me at any point. Now, I get it. You know, no free clout. You don't owe me anything. Cool. But at the same time, I'm advertising your gym. I'm here from the UK, benching 5 plates in Zoo Culture on incline. I don't think anyone else goes in there and does that. So it's actually a good thing for your gym. You know, it's good. It's a good selling point for your video. It's a good thing for your gym. It's a good thing for you. But then none of that ever made the video. So that was another thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Where I was like, okay, cool. Well, why did you get it recorded then? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you get that recorded? Is it because I can clap bench more than you and that was your thing? Like, is it something as stupid as that? Do you know what I mean? Is it? And I'm sure it isn't. Like, you know, it's probably nothing like that. But it rubbed me the wrong way to a point where I was like, okay. So I didn't go back to Zoo. I went there once, and it's funny because while I was in LA, I was only 0.8 miles from Zoo Culture. Like I was a 3-minute drive, you know. But I went once and once only and didn't go back.
Yeah, wow, that says a lot, doesn't it? It's a shame, man. Because I train at a gym here that I always end up going back to. We have Gold's Gym here. I don't know. You guys have
Yeah.
Gold's in the UK as well?
I don't know if I actually, I have no idea if we've got a Golds in the UK. I went to the Golds in Venice in LA, which
Oh
was
yeah.
cool. But there's I don't know other Golds in the UK. There probably is one, and I'm probably just super uneducated on it. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, we have quite a few of them here, and I'd love doing body because I like bodybuilding. Personally, it's not
yeah,
necessarily even for aesthetics. I actually just found that I enjoyed the training more.
yeah.
I'm also built like fucking Michael Phelps, so powerlifting is not even quite as nice as Michael Phelps, but I'm just long, man, and so powerlifting, I'm a decent squatter, but personally, I just ran into more issues than what was worth. I
hmm
very early on kind of just decided, you know what, I love this as a sport, but I'm not going to personally push it this far, and I'm still kind of
Yeah,
finding what I like. But the gym that I train at, man, cast iron plates, shit's old. There's fucking chalk. And
yeah,
chances are there's about 3 or 4 people in there when I go in there, and every single person that you bump into, you either know each other's name or you introduce
yeah.
yourself to each other.
hmm
And I struggle going to other gyms for that reason, because I've
hmm
been in similar situations like that where it's just people are so weird. And it's funny, I have done podcasts with people or met people, and I'll walk up and introduce myself to someone, and sometimes there is even an awkwardness for the first 20 seconds of someone
hmm
being like, oh wow, this person's walked up to me and started talking to me, and
Yeah,
there'll be sometimes 5 or 6 of them and I'm on my own, and it can be a bit awkward initially, and I almost start
yeah,
to go, well fuck, is this have I done the right thing here, because these guys are being a bit weird.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden you kind of meet everyone and it's a bit better, but it just shows you how standoffish people can be. And
yeah.
it's a bit of a shame in that kind of environment where I always find myself going back to this gym. But I tell you what, I started probably about 4 or 5 months ago now. I started jujitsu,
Yeah,
and man, I have never been around a more accepting group of people. And
yeah,
I've never had any kind of interactions like I have in this place around the corner where I live, man, because it's crazy to within 2 seconds, you meet someone, you're choking each other out, and then you're talking to each
yeah,
other 10 minutes
yeah,
later, and you're getting to know each other, and oh cool, bro, I'll see you next time, you know what I mean? And you
yeah,
almost get to a point where you meet so many people doing it and have so many good interactions, you're forgetting people's names, but you're not forgetting because you're forgetting because
yeah,
they're not memorable. You're just meeting so many cool fucking
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think you do. You start to get to a point, and I think that's probably where I'll struggle, as I get more into it and the more people I speak to, is that I do find myself, and I won't, mention obviously certain people, but there's been 2 or 3 people on this podcast, and one person in particular who's, was quite popular, and I was really excited to talk to this person. And I remember as soon as we came on the webcam, you and me, oh mate, hey, going, thanks for. We just talked normally. I
hmm
remember the webcam came on, and this person went, all right. And I was like, oh, hey, how you going? Thanks for coming. Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. We'll get started then. Yeah. I was just like,
God,
what,
wow.
what the fuck's going on here? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I just couldn't believe it, man. It ruined the podcast for me, and I had to
yeah.
sit
Of
there
course
for
it did.
an
Yeah,
hour, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm asking them questions, and man, I have to admit it was one of the biggest struggles I've ever had, because from
yeah,
the very start, I just went, fuck, I don't like you.
yeah, yeah,
and and
yeah,
yeah, I think, man, it's just people like yourself, and people like myself, and there's plenty of people I know who are good, genuine people, man. I think we'll always struggle especially in an industry like this, where unfortunately there is a large percentage of people who, care if the camera's on, or care
hmm
about the wrong stuff.
yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
like you said, it could have been a one-off interaction, man, with Brad, but it doesn't really sound like it was. And
It's not just, I suppose, really quick with Brad. It, I've heard things about him from other people.
yeah,
Um, not putting any names out there, but I've heard things about him from other people. Um, and I suppose his actions on the day supported it, you know, and kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
gave me the impression of, okay, fair enough, maybe they're right. So yeah.
It's disappointing, but at least, it's one of those things where, you didn't lose anything, man. And, you can just sort of
Oh, hell no.
walk away from that experience. And you've obviously had a great experience with Larry, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And one of the other things, I guess, and I sort of want to get into that before you go, because that's one of the biggest things is you've created quite a following for yourself. So that's the other thing. Forget other people that you interact with that have a good following and all that. That's great, but from what I can tell, man, you've done pretty well for yourself. I mean, I've seen that you've talked, and I don't know if I've got this wrong, if it's followers, but do you have 1 million followers on TikTok?
So I'm just about to hit 1.2 million on TikTok. Yeah.
So that's insane, because I've just started on TikTok and realized that it works different than I expected. And on any platform, it's crazy. But where did this sort of happen? Did you have one video that just went nuts, or?
So I suppose the best way to put it is, yeah. So I started posting fitness TikToks or like gym related TikToks back in like July last year. Now, when I say posting, I wasn't posting consistently at all. I was probably posting once a week. Which for those of you that do know TikTok, you'll know that is really bad. It's nowhere near good enough to really sit in the algorithm. And odds are that you're not going to be getting kind of growth numbers that you want to get if you're not posting consistently. Consistently. So at the time, I really wasn't consistent with it, but I was just posting some stuff. Now, a lot of people go, oh, well, you do all the clapping stuff just for TikTok and for Instagram, and you do all the stupid stuff for this. But actually, I was doing all of that off camera before I ever had a TikTok account. I was doing that just because I'm a fucking stupid guy. That's why I like to do stupid shit. And I like to test my strength in weird ways with different feats. So, the clapping bench press, I was doing 100 kilo, 115, 120 kilo clapping bench press before I ever, kind of started pumping that out on TikTok. But don't get me wrong, the growth that I saw on TikTok due to that was definitely why I pushed the boat out more and got to, now I'm at 155 kilo clapping incline. So I suppose the best way to put it is that I was uploading average inconsistent content for around 3 to 4 months on TikTok, from July up to around the start of November of 22. Now, around November 22, I began to post some more outlandish content. So some of the clapping stuff, some of the one arm stuff, and that started to do some numbers. So, the clapping stuff is unheard of. People have never seen that, especially at the weights that I do. If it is a world first, nobody's ever done it. Simple as that. I say that with confidence because I know nobody has ever done that. Nobody's ever clapped 140 kilo in incline, 150 kilo in incline, 155. And I'd argue that I've probably got it in me right now to do it with 165, maybe even 170. I'm pretty confident. But they started to blow, maybe 1 million, 2 million views. I started to have the odd post to do 1 million or a 1.5 million. And it was weird because, the other posts that I'd put up were only 6,000, 5,000, 7,000 views. But there would be the odd post here and there that was doing 1 milli plus 2 mil. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the videos of me doing the shoulder press on the Techno Gym shoulder press machine, but I'd put like 6 or 7 plates aside and then get a dude to stand on top. And, that one did like 2 million, 1 million. So I noticed that the outlandish shit worked and it was paying off. So I started to post more outlandish shit and, just really focus the stupid stuff. And slowly but surely I started to garner a bit of a following. I kind of hit 10K and then 20K. And then I remember so like early Jan 23, I was maybe sitting around kind of like the 30,000 follower mark. And then around January the 20th, January the 19th, something like that, I posted my first kind of humbling video where I sent someone to the graveyard that at the time wasn't the graveyard, and I wasn't the Gym Reaper, but I was just doing to someone what they were doing to someone else in video form. So there was a dude that basically put up a post saying, if your man can't bench 100 kilo, he's a pussy or he's a girl or he's some stupid shit along these lines. And I thought, like, who the fuck are you to gatekeep fitness and to tell people what is and isn't strong? So I thought, I'm gonna just mog you. So like, I think I uploaded me clap benching 100 kilo and then doing it on one arm, also on incline on a barbell, and it did like 4.2 million views, and people fucking loved it. Like the reception to it was like, yo, this is like, yo, oh my god, people like, yeah, get mugged. And then not only that, but I went to the kid's page, and his page was getting lit up. Like thousands of comments for weeks were all over his page. And I thought, holy fuck, like people really align with his content. And I thought, It makes sense that they do because it's probably supportive of a lot of people that are self-conscious and concerned about the numbers in the gym and feel put down by others. So it kind of gives them like their hero. Do you know what I mean? Like that, the fucking guy that sticks up for them. So I looked and what happened was immediately I was getting tagged in more content that was just like that. So I was getting tagged in posts where people were being super egotistical and putting other people down. And so I started to do more of them. And maybe I did 2 or 3, over like a 2 to 3 day period. And they all did really well, like at least minimum 250,000 views. And I was like, wow, these are doing good. But then one comment on maybe the 4th or 5th upload that I did, I remember this, it was January the 24th. January the 24th, I had just hit 44,000 followers. So I'd gained like 10,000 followers in a few days. And I'm like, damn, this is moving well. But maybe this is what I should do. And then I read a comment on one of the posts that said, this motherfucker is the Gym Reaper. And I was like, that sounds sick. Like that, it just stuck. I was like, yo, that sounds sick. So I changed my TikTok name straight away to Baker the Gym Reaper. And then I got a guy that I know to just make a weird graphic, which is the one that's everyone's seeing, where I'm holding a barbell side on with a big black thing on, and it's got weights in it, and that's the one that everyone can identify me by. But he did that in 2 minutes on his computer and just sent it me, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm sticking it in every video." And it's crazy how far that image has gone. But I was like on the run with this name, the Gym Reaper, and then January the 24th, I hit 50,000 followers. January 24th, 25th, one of them I hit 50,000. By February the 28th, I was on approximately 280,000. So in a month, my following had just absolutely, tumbled, and it had just begun to fly. And then I think by start of April, I was sitting around 750k, 780k, 800k followers. So I was like, holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe how fast it moved. And then I hit 1 million. I hit 1 million followers in May. I want to say second week in May, I hit 1 million followers. I'm just about to hit 1.2 mil now. And yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster. It's been bizarre to me. I think the craziest thing is, with TikTok, you don't realize just how substantial the reach is. So your following number isn't a reflection of your reach at all. Like I might have 1.2, 1.1 million followers, but my reach is far beyond it. I think my best month, I've done like 330 million views. So like, that's 330 million potentially people that have seen me that, and, a huge percentage of them definitely don't follow me. But they've seen me and they know of me. So it's quite funny how speaking from that experience, it's quite funny how I've met a lot of people, because one thing I do like to do is when I meet people that want to take a photo with me that seem like a genuine fan, I'll follow them back on TikTok. So I'll be like, what's your TikTok name? And I'll go follow you back. So like I've had guys that I've met that are like, yo, are you the Gym Reaper? And I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Can I get a picture? Yeah, cool. What's your TikTok? Let me follow you back. And then when I go to follow them back, they don't follow me. They don't even follow me on TikTok. And I'm like, oh. And it's like, so obviously you're just someone that's seen me and you know of me, but you don't actually, follow me. And I tend to get that a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy period in my life. It's been an absolute night and day thing, because I've never been someone that's wanted to be famous. And I wouldn't class myself as famous now. I just class myself as someone that's popular, that's well known amongst a certain demographic of males, between the ages of kind of 14 to 24, 25. But it's been a weird adjustment phase. It's been something that's new. It's been cool. And like I said, I think the biggest takeaway for me from this, the biggest benefit is the amount of messages I get that help motivate me. And they're all supportive. They're all, bro, you've helped me out of this space. I'm only 14. I'm only this, I'm only that. I mean, that's been the coolest thing for me, is just how many people I get told I'm supporting.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, man. And that would be like I said to you before about the podcast, you know what I mean? And the way it makes me feel, like that sort of shit to wake up to must just like make your fucking day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I guess where I'm confused, although it's not the important part, but I guess it's all just weird how it works now. But what's the process of, are you making money off TikTok then?
Yeah. So I won't disclose how much, but it's a good amount. I'll tell you off camera. We can talk numbers off camera if you want, but I won't put it on camera. So TikTok pays you for pretty much views. And that's why I say consistency is key on TikTok. So if you want to make TikTok something that can pay you back long term, something that can earn you sponsorships, something that you can use as a building bridge for other socials, you've got to stay consistent. Again, this word comes up in every walk of life. Consistency. Consistency will pay off, and it does. With TikTok, the more you upload, the more you're going to see. So you've got to upload as much as you can, stay consistent. Even if you feel like you've got no content, find something, try a different avenue, talk to the camera, do something, find some form of content that you can upload. It's funny how TikTok works, because I sometimes spend an hour editing a TikTok, half hour editing a TikTok, upload it, and it fucking flops. And then I'll upload a TikTok of me lying on my sofa that takes me 3 seconds to edit, where I say, oh, I'm going on a cut, and it does fucking 2 million views. It had no thought process behind it. It had no thought process behind it at all. It had no preparation planning. It had no editing going into it. I just put some text on it, uploaded it, did 2 million. I think that's the thing with TikTok is don't overthink it, because a lot of people overthink TikTok and think, oh, but this has got... just go with what feels right in the moment, upload it, stay consistent. It'll start to pay off. TikTok pay me. They definitely don't pay at the rate that YouTube do. I wish they did, because if they did, I would be loaded. But they definitely don't pay, obviously, at the same kind of ad. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, CPM that YouTube do and stuff like that. But they pay. Look, I mean, let's just say, for example, I'll give you an example. If you do 90 million views a week, if you do 90 million views a week, a month, maybe. If you do 90 million views for weekly, you could see anything from 1,200 to 1,600 pounds. So it's not much when you think about how many views you're having to do. If you've got to put out 90 million views and you're only going to see around 1,200 to 1,600 in that range of money in GBP.
Is that a week or a month?
That's a month. That's not a week. That's a month. So, we're talking, you need to do 90 million views in a month. So you need to average 22.5 million views a week to see a return of approximately 1,800 AUSD. ASD, yeah, Australian dollar. So yeah, it's don't get me wrong. Look, the thing with TikTok is, one thing I'll say for TikTok is, it's a great platform. 100%. It's a great platform. The discoverability on there is endless. The reach is endless. The potential of it, and what it can bring to you, it is endless, and it's a really good platform. It's a great platform to grow on. However, it's super volatile. I mean, you could get banned tomorrow for saying the wrong thing, and that's that. It's all over. It's super volatile, and not only that, but it doesn't pay the way other socials pay. You know what I mean? So you have to get to a really elite level on TikTok to be able to earn what you could earn at a much lower level on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's insane, man. The fact that people have careers,
from
it. Like I mentioned Matt before and stuff, and Mike Thurston and that. Those guys, it blows. I think that was the biggest thing for me when I was working away that made me realize, I was like, man, I'm working the shittiest job and I feel fucked, and I'm struggling to live my life and enjoy it. $5,000 a month. You know what I mean? And there's someone, you know what I mean, showing their tits and getting that. Not even. There's chicks. You know what I mean? If I was a chick, I could take a shit in a paper bag and send it to someone and earn that. You know what I mean? I'm not discounting that. You know what I mean? I'm just saying I can't fucking believe it. Jamie, who I mentioned before, Jamie Morris.
Yeah.
She did
OnlyFans too, right?
She ate McDonald's in her car the other day in a fucking giraffe onesie and got paid $250 to eat McDonald's in her car. in a fucking onesie.
That's incredible. That's incredible. It's funny, talking on this subject, I've actually had some pretty sus DMs recently. It's something that's becoming more prominent, is I'm getting dudes hit me up in the DMs and they're like, yo, bro, would you do a pose for me if I sent you this money? And I'm like, what? I had a dude the other day offering me $500 to pose in some Speedos doing a set of shoulder press, to sit in Speedos on the shoulder press and do a couple reps for a video and send it in for $500. Now I'm just going to be clear, I haven't done this, by the way. Have you watched them Speedos, by the way? I'm joking. But no, I haven't done any of this. But yeah, I've been getting some really weird DMs, almost to a point where I read them and I go, do you know what I mean? Should I begin to entertain these?
Mate, I'll get my jocks right now. I don't give a fuck. This is what I'm saying. It's that's the thing that blows my mind, because the sexual side of things is crazy that people are obviously doing it for that. But what blows my mind is people not even having to do that.
Yeah.
Jamie said the other day, someone gave her, I think she said someone gave her like $200 she dressed up in a Sailor Moon costume and did pull-ups in her spare room. And someone gave her $200 for that. And she's getting offered $400 for guys wanted to wrestle them and choke him out with their legs and shit. And like, I can't believe it, man. Like it's insane the stuff that she's telling me. I just can't. It's not even sexual now, you know. And you probably will run into more of that, man. You'll probably have people say, "Oh, look, can you bench press me?" And I'll give you $1,000 and shit like that,
bro. I have all sorts. The amount of people that are begging me, like, bro, can you start an OnlyFans? I'm like, nah, I can't. Sorry, like, I can't. I just can't. But like, yeah, I get a lot. I get so many. Like, I used to get them a little before, but now it's like I'm getting like maybe 5, 6 a day. They're a bit outlandish, and I'm like, whoa, because obviously, like I said, I like to respond to everyone. Like, I like to try and respond to everyone. So every time I get a message request, I click on it. But like the other day, like I got a message request from a guy, and I mean, like, sorry to go rude here, but like it had no context. And obviously, like I said, I like to try and respond to everyone. So it was a message request from a dude and then I clicked on it, and it was just you know, where it says an image and it says the image is concealed. You have to click it to view. Like there was no text, so I pressed it, and it was just, bro, it was him jerking off, man. And I'm just like, yo, like, bro, like I did not need to see that, but thanks anyway.
Yeah, that's you know, it's the worst part about that sort of thing too is that shit would have stuck in your mind. You know what I mean?
No, I DM'd him back. I've got the DM. I haven't got it on this phone. I'm sorry, I've not got no Wi-Fi on this phone in a minute. My iPhone's messing up. It's on my Samsung upstairs. But I DM'd him back and was like, "It's too small for me, bro. Sorry."
Well, hey, you know, the problem with that is these motherfuckers are so bad. Is that you can't even call them on their own bluff, because you might say, "Oh, that's too small," and then he might get into that and be like, "Fuck yeah, I'll give you $200 if you keep all it is."
Say that again. Say that again. Shame me.
He wants to get degraded by the Jim Reaper. That's what he's looking for. Oh man, that's look. It's an endless conversation, man. I cannot believe the amount of people that I speak to now, and there's like stories about this sort of shit. And it is. I think, unfortunately, there is a level, and this isn't to put Jamie down, because I think what Jamie's very. I'll give it to her. She's had a lot of people ask her for her to take her clothes off and stuff, and she's pretty adamant at the moment, at least, where she's like, "Look, I don't need to do that. No, like, I'm getting money without doing that. So if someone's going to give me money,
why would you? Yeah.
Well, she's going to get money to eat McDonald's, mate. She doesn't need to take her top off."
Exactly. Well, bro, if I got paid to eat McDonald's, let me tell you now, I'd be the richest man alive, because I've eaten plenty of McDonald's for free. So
I wasn't going to say anything, but you look like you could fuck up a Happy Meal for sure.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing, right? And I'm going to do this with you, because I do it with everyone usually at the end. But we've obviously had lots to talk about. But I want to run you through a speed round before you go, and these are the questions I like to ask, right? So, if you're on death row and you could eat one meal, what would it be?
Oh fuck! God, I'm gonna sound so sad for this. People are gonna think I'm so sad. A Five Guys.
I've never had, like, because I'm an Australian, man, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
I see and hear about it all the time. I want to try it. It's like, it's in America as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's an American food chain, but it's also in the UK now. I don't know if it's in Europe too, like parts of Europe, but I know it's in the UK. I suppose the best way for me to pretense this is I love burgers. I've always been that guy that just loves a good burger, you know. My favorite cuisine, is Mexican. Like, I love burritos, like, oh god, like, such a good meal. But like, overall, like, I am a dude that just, like, anywhere I go, I can order a burger, you know. I love a burger. But fuck, man, Five Guys is different, bro. Just like, every time I have Five Guys, I feel like I'm redeeming. You know, like a dog that gets a treat, like I'm rewarding myself. I'm like, yay! Like, I get my Five Guys, and I'm so happy. And then, you know, I get my little fucking cherry Dr. Pepper and my Cajun fries, and I sit there like a happy child. It's like having a Happy Meal again as a kid. Like, I'm so happy having a Five Guys. Oh, it's so good. So I think if I was gonna top out, if I was on death row, God, that's so generic. I feel so stupid for saying that, but it is. Like, it'd be a Five Guys. Like, I just have to make a Five Guys.
It's not generic. I've had people give some shit answers. I've had like people like talking about like a home cooked meal or something. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with a
that's
home
what
cooked.
does my head in, bro.
Yeah.
People look, oh, I'd have a steak and asparagus. Like, shut the fuck up. No, you
Yeah.
wouldn't. No, you fucking wouldn't. Like, no
Yeah.
one wants a shit. Oh, look at me and my medium rare steak. Like, fuck off. No, like, have something
Mate.
like, something that's worth fucking dying on. Like, I had a fucking kid. Like, I ate 6,000 calories of Five Guys and guess what? It doesn't matter because I'm going to die anyway. Like, that's how I feel. Do you know what I mean? Fuck it. Like, that's how I want to go out.
I'm 100% with you. I had someone say like chicken, avocado, and salad once, and I was so
Oh,
angry at their answer. I was like, "Fuck that off!"
what?
Like,
So you can track your macros from the grave? Like, get a fucking grip.
no fucking shit, man. Look, I'm an eater, and like I go through stages of tracking food and stuff, but I'm more interested in it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I like
Yeah.
to see how much I can eat just so I can see how many fucking calories are in it. You know what I mean? Like I sat down just before and almost ate about 2,000, and I didn't finish my food because I ended up fucking half falling asleep because of I ate so much it fucked up my system and I fucking fell asleep. Well, but it's one of those things where like I'm more from an interest standpoint, but man, if you're gonna die, it's like who gives a fuck? And like, look, if it came down to something like that, honestly, like it would be fast food for me too, man. I don't think it's a bad answer. I like, and especially because for me, people will pick a home cooked dinner, and it's like it's funny that you want this home cooked dinner so much before you die, but every single fucking 2 days you're at McDonald's, cunt. So surely you'd want that more than you'd want the home cooked dinner. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But look, we'll keep it rolling. We won't get caught on that. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I've thought about this loads of times in my life. I have thought about this so many fucking times. It would be teleportation, just teleporting.
Fucking finally, someone answers the question with a good. The amount of people that have said flying.
Oh, I want to fly. Again, why are you so generic? Look, what's the fucking point in flying if you can teleport? You haven't got to waste time flying then. You can just fucking teleport. Not only that, guess what? You can't fly into a vault in a bank. You can fucking teleport there, though. You know what I mean? Guess what? I can't fly into a fucking, female fucking changing room. I can teleport there. Don't do that, but I'm just saying, you can teleport anywhere. You can't fly anywhere. That's the difference. But I mean, if I wanted, what? You want to go on the moon for a second? Cool. I'm on the moon. I'm back. Like, there's teleportation benefits are endless. There's no negatives to this at all. It's the only superpower I can think of that is endless positives.
100%, 100%. I agree. And this is the thing as well. I just want to be able to teleport somewhere and laugh knowing that the fucking idiot that said he wants to be able to fly is still 2.5 hours away because he's on his way here.
Yeah, literally. Like, what?
He's cold as fuck and he's passing out because he's burning 10,000 calories a fucking minute. But look, I think it's like, it's a childish answer. But to be fair, if there was anyone that I think would be hilarious to see fly, I wouldn't mind seeing 175 kilo Jim Reaper in this fucking sky coming towards the fucking
I'd have to perfect the landing technique. I think the landing technique would be the problem. I'd be a fucking flight risk when I landed.
You probably would be, but it would be worth it. It'd be a fucking good TikTok. I bet you that'd get a few million views.
Yeah, probably.
Look, teleportation, mate. Ever since I saw the movie Jumper, that was me. I was like, that's fucking 100%. In my experience, people in the UK, I grew up with a mate who was heavily invested in WWE and loved fucking movies and all that shit. Do you have a favorite movie?
Well, I've been to see, just on that note, I've been to see Monday Night Raw live twice. I am a WWE fan. Have I got a favorite movie? Yes. I've got a couple. Wow, you know what? Such a fucking difficult question because I have so many favorites. So I've got a favorite animation, which is Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Or The Incredibles or Shark Tale. Fuck, see, I'm dreadful at this because I love too many things. And then like movies, as in like just an overall movie, probably Interstellar is like one of my go-to straight away. I fucking love that movie. I also think the soundtrack's incredible. And then like I'm a fucking sucker for war movies. Like I love war movies. And like there's a film called We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, which is really good. Love that film.
He also made another
And then
fucking wicked movie called Hacksaw Ridge a couple of years ago.
yes, Hacksaw Ridge, really good.
Mm.
He also made a great like old American-based film called The Patriot,
Oh, okay.
which
Let's
was
see that.
really good. Yeah, really good. Patriot was really good. But if I had to, you know what, like you're not, I don't think you're going to know what this movie is. And in fact, I think 99% of the people that are listening aren't going to know what this movie is, which is a shame. But if you don't, you need to go and watch it. Trust me, it's fucking British teenagers in a fucking nutshell. But probably my favorite ever film is Kevin and Perry Go Large.
See, I haven't seen it, but I'm super aware of it because my mate that I said that was in the WWE, he was Scottish, but he loved English shit, and he'd mentioned it many times, and I've never
It's
seen it.
so good.
Yeah, I do need to
So
watch it.
good. It's
Yeah.
just such a like. It's one of those films where like no matter what headspace I'm in my life, I can put that film on and immediately feel better. Do you know what I mean? Like because no matter how many times I watch it, I am still going to laugh endlessly. Do you know what I mean? It's such a good film. Such a good film.
I think
There's
a lot
also,
of
you know what, a film like to throw at you real quick as well as like a bit of a psychological one that nobody seems to know about is a film called The House That Jack Built. It was previewed at the Cannes Film Festival in like 2018. Never hit cinemas because pretty much in the film festival, 45% of the audience walked out within 45 minutes. They said it was too gruesome for them to continue with the film. So what the film, it stars, it's funny really because it stars really big actors. It stars Uma Thurman from Kill Bill. And also, I can't think of his name. I think his name starts with. I think his name is Matt.
is it Matt Dillon?
Matt Dillon. It might just be Matt Dillon. Hold on, The House That Jack Built. Is it Matt Dillon? I think you just got it straight away. It's a Lars von Trier movie. Yeah, Matt Dillon. Well done. Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Matt Dillon, Uma Thurman. And what the film's about is so every horror or psychological thriller that you see about serial killers is always about peering over the victim's shoulder. So there's always suspense and build up and jump scares and ooh and blah blah blah. Whereas this film was completely from the schizophrenic, psychotic mind of a serial killer, and you get to see everything from their raw point of view. And it's super messed up, but also super grippy. You're like, oh my god! Like you watch it, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it's bad. Like no wonder it didn't hit cinemas, but I recommend it for people that are into those kind of films. It's probably my favorite, just because I feel like I can't sleep for 2 days after it. If a film can do that to me, I'm probably going to like, you know what, you've done something right with the movie. But yeah, it's good. There we go. They're my suggestions. I'd say Interstellar, Kevin and Perry Go Large, and The House That Jack Built, and then my animation, like I said, Finding Nemo, fucking untouchable, bro.
Yeah, fucking oath. Yeah, man. Well, there's some good answers. I have had Lord of the Rings about fucking 7 times, which annoys me.
I mean, it's good. Look, you know, the thing with like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and those things is they're good, and you watch them once every 3 years, and then you don't watch them again, and then that is what it is. Like, yeah, they're good, and when you watch them, you go, yeah, fucking hell, these are good movies. Like, I enjoy these, but they're not something that I'm going to watch again next week. Like, I could watch Kevin and Perry every fucking day and still laugh. I couldn't watch Lord of the Rings every day.
No
way. Do you know what I mean?
People are like, oh, the extended version. Like, fuck, you tell me this is 4 hours and it's still one movie, cunt. That's fucking. Yeah, that's a lot to commit to, man. I can't. Yeah. I mean, even Harry Potter, I've seen it. I don't really feel like I'm in a rush to watch it again, you know. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everyone has their interests.
Yeah.
Music. Do you have a favorite song besides After Dark?
Favorite song. You know, got to be an answer that nobody expects here. You might know who I'm talking about. I'm assuming you do because you're around the same age as me. You know Prince?
Yeah.
Purple Rain by Prince is one of my favorite songs ever.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
there
answer.
There we go. Answer no one was expecting, probably. One of my favorite songs ever is Purple Rain by Prince. And then additionally, Prince has also got a song called I Would Die For You, which is also one of my favorite songs ever. Like they just fucking sit with me so well. I love them. They're just such good songs. And I think it's because I grew up on Prince. My mom just blasted Prince everywhere when I was a kid. You know, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, all I ever heard was Prince. So I grew up on Prince. It was all I knew, you know, early 90s, late 90s, early 90s. Prince was just all over my household. It was all my mom listened to. So I grew up on it. And then I just realized how much of a fucking talented musician that guy is. Like I think statistics where like he could play like 70 plus instruments. Don't quote me on that. I could be completely wrong and stupid, but I think it's in that 50, 60, 70 range of instruments that he could play. He was a master guitarist. He was really good on piano. He was really good with string percussions. He was so impressive. And then not only that, but he could sing. But yeah, Purple Rain and I Would Die for You, they just fucking top it out for me. At least in terms of favorite songs ever. I think if we're talking a favorite artist ever, it's probably Drake, which is the most generic answer I could have given you ever.
Drake.
So,
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to ignore that one because I don't.
Yeah, you can cut that and we'll sit with Prince if you want. Like,
I think Prince is way cooler. I'll just cut that out of the podcast and people will be like,
yeah,
oh,
feel
that's
free,
really deep. Yeah.
yeah.
On a side note, if you haven't, there's a show called Dave that you should watch if you.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? The
No.
show Dave. You know who Little Dicky is?
Yeah.
So he's made like a show that's like super. It's like kind of not even really meant to be about his music, and it's got like retarded humor in it, but it's got so many people, man. It's got like Drake, Usher, Brad Pitt was in it recently. You've got to watch it. But it's got he's really into Drake, and there's a lot of that kind of music and stuff in it. But the humor, I think, is something that you would appreciate.
Okay, good. I need to look.
And one of my favorites, this is the last question, is if you could spend a day with anyone, they can be alive or dead, and this is the important part as well, they can be fact or fiction. If you can hang out with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Wow.
Yeah, I know people hate this question.
No,
huge.
I don't hate it. It's a really good question because it's making me think. I like questions that make me think. See, for me, I work really well on inspiration, but not only that, like I'd like to spend a day with someone that I can learn from, that I can take away and apply it to my own life. Wow, that's such a tough one. Wow. See, oh, you know what? I think I've got it. I think I know what to spend a day with. I think I know, and this is crazy. John F. Kennedy. Dead. I'd spend a day with him after death because I'd want to know all the secrets that he knew.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you first said it, I thought, fuck, like you'd want to make sure that you're in somewhere, like in a building somewhere or something. You wouldn't want to be hanging out next to him in public, would you?
No, after death. I'd want to hang out with him after death so he could tell me everything that he knew that he didn't get a chance to tell everyone else.
Yeah, look, I'd be interested in some of the other questions, but I won't lie. The mail immediately came out in me, and I'd have to know if Marilyn Monroe gave good head. I'd just be interested. You know, look, I'm not saying there wouldn't be interesting questions beyond that, absolutely, but I feel bad. That's the first one that came to my head. I feel bad.
Yeah. It's funny how I said I'd look for someone to feel motivated from and take it away, and then the conspiracy theorist in me went, "Oh no, John F. Kennedy." So yeah, I guess that's where I am.
No, but have you seen the Stephen King show that was made about that?
I have, yes, yeah. I watched all of that. Yeah,
the one with James Franco. That was that was obviously, it would have been a really great book, but that show alone was incredibly well made, and I loved it, man. The whole the way that they explored it in like a fictional way was really well done.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, look, man, I don't cover all those questions with people, but I sometimes I get really bland answers from the first two, and I kind of go, all right, it's not going to give me much. But I think you covered them really well, and
thank you,
man. It's hard to round out the podcast. This has been one of my favorites, and I really appreciate your time, man, and your outlook.
No problem at all.
Yeah, the way that you took the time to talk to me, and we made it happen. It's part of my structure, I guess, behind my podcast is that I kind of never really want to be. Anyone can have a podcast in a studio. I kind of want it to always be around the fact that I could just do it anywhere at any time, and it just kind of comes down to two people having a conversation. And I want it to be a good conversation. And I believe we've had one. So anyone who's listening that may not be aware, I assume that they would be, but they can obviously find you on TikTok. Is it under the Jim Reaper?
So my handle on TikTok is Big Baker, but you can search Baker, you can search Jim Reaper, you can search anything like that, and I'll come up. And then IG is Big Boy Bake. That's my handle on there. But again, you can just search the Jim Reaper, and I'll come up. And then YouTube, the same, just Baker the Jim Reaper. Pretty much the same on all of them.
Yeah, so I'll have to follow you on TikTok because I've only just got on there and I'm confused by the process, to be honest. The thing that I don't like, you open your phone and it immediately starts fucking playing a video. I find that a bit annoying.
Yeah, I mean, you can turn autoplay off because it
can.
annoys the fuck out of me too. But yeah, I think like if you've just started TikTok, it's super overwhelming. You're a bit like, what the fuck is all this?
Yeah.
I think one thing that if I could tell myself something early on when I started is just like I said to you earlier, be consistent. So TikTokers have openly admitted as a company that they will boost kind of your first 10 posts. They tend to apply boost. They try and help you push out into an algorithm, find some recognition. So it's good to get your stuff out early and to get it consistent. And then also mess around with your hashtags. Like I now have been using the same hashtags on every post for probably 3 months. No, never changes. It's always the exact same set of hashtags. So find hashtags that you know work well and that you see consistently on trending and viral videos, and then build your own plethora of them and put them together and stick them on your uploads and just keep doing that.
Yeah, okay, man. Thank you for the advice. And I'm sure and some people listening will find that helpful as well. It's an interesting word out there of algorithms and all those sorts of things. But more than anything, if you want to follow Josh, go over to his YouTube because, as we've discussed, that's where he'll get paid the most. You know what I mean? So sort that out.
I like that way. Yeah, I like that. It sounds better. Let's do that.
Yeah, so get your boy's YouTube up there.
Yeah, for real.
Man, is there anything you want to shout out before you go? Any of your sponsors or anything like that? I always give people that opportunity, or your family maybe.
Yeah, I mean, tell you what, shout out Silverback Gymwear. They've been super supportive of me. They're a big gymwear company, especially out in the UK, growing, exponentially in the US. But they've just sponsored, they sponsor a lot of strongman. They sponsored World's Strongest Man recently. Just been really supportive of me. The moment that they heard that Los Angeles was an opportunity, they funded it. They were all over it. So a big shout out to them. You can go and buy their clothing through the link on my IG and save yourself 10%. They've got some of the coolest clothing that you'll see in terms of gym wear, super cool stuff. And a lot of it, as it sounds, is focused around silverback gorillas and what's not fucking cool about a silverback. Additionally, is Applied Nutrition, which a lot of people will know as ABE or Abe Nation or All Black Everything Pre-Workout. So Applied Nutrition been massively supportive of me. Some of the best proteins, some of the best supplements in the game, definitely the best pre-workout in the game, in my opinion. And you can go and buy that through appliednutrition.uk and use code Baker20 at checkout, save yourself 20%. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, mate, there we go. No, thank you for coming on. And look, I'll give a shout out to Power Pit Rockingham. If you ever find yourself over in Western Australia, I'll fucking pay for your Uber and we have to get you down to the thriving suburb that is Rockingham. You'll love it here. We used to have heaps of knife crime, probably not as much as you're used to, but luckily there's not as much now, but we do have some great gyms, man. And I honestly would love to see you bench fucking 250 on one of the gyms here because they've probably never had that on them. And I will also shout out Achievement Apex and get onto my man Brendan because he needs to get you a power bar, I reckon. There's probably no better promotion in the world than someone benching 300 kilos and fucking throwing it in the air.
Listen, get me that bar. If you get me that bar, I promise I'll use it everywhere.
Yeah, look, that doesn't sound like there's a downside to me. As long as you don't use it for any OnlyFans content, you got to promise that.
Oh, Lord.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I won't.
Let's hope that stops. All right. If you are listening and you're a fan of Josh, just be a fan of the lifting,
please.
Right?
Yeah.
Leave the other stuff alone. He's got a family. Jesus.
I mean, unless you're offering, real money, like if we're talking 5Gs, then maybe hit me up. But
look, if you pay my man 5Gs to eat McDonald's in a Speedo, he'll do it. All right. Okay, that's a fair.
That sounds like a good day to me. If you're gonna pay me for it, even better. So
it's definitely the way to go. Look, I will shout out as always my mother, and look, Josh, it's been great to meet you, man. Thank you for your time today. And I would love to chat to you in 2 years when you have your own TV show and you're killing it on YouTube, making real, even more money. And look, man, keep doing what you're doing. I'm a huge fan. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you. Thank you for your time. And thank you for being as constructive as you have been with your questioning. It's good to speak to someone who doesn't just ask generic shit. Do you know what I mean? It's been a good conversation and it's flowed well. So that's a credit to you, man. Thank you for your time.
Oh man, I think a conversation's everything, and you know it's got to be as natural as it can be, and it has been. So, look, mate, I will chat to you and again, you know, in the future, I'm sure. In the
100%.
meantime, you know where to follow Josh if you've been listening. And hey, man, enjoy the rest of your day. It's dinner time for me.
It is. It's cardio time for me. Thank you.
Enjoy, mate.
Will do.
See you, man.